Chapter 825. As soon as she stepped through the door, a handsome and familiar face suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. His deep eyes were filled with complex emotions as he stared at her. Yuchi. Ji leaned slightly to the side to avoid Jiang Tianhao's outstretched hand. She smiled and said, "Senior, are you here to take Zissou out to play?" Jiang Tianhao's body stiffened and a touch of bitterness appeared between his brows. "Yuchi, I heard that you stayed out last night. Do you have a new boyfriend?" Ji widened her eyes in disbelief as if she couldn't believe that he would say such a thing. Soon, a touch of disappointment appeared in her eyes. She stubbornly raised her chin and pretended to be cold as she said, "We've already broken up. Do you think you still have the right to interfere in my affairs?" "Yuchi." Jiang Tianhao held her hand emotionally. "How can you say that? You know that I like you." "I had no choice but to." Ji broke free from his hand. Her beautiful phoenix eyes were filled with sadness. She turned her head away and didn't dare to look at him. She said in a dry voice, "Isn't it too late to say this now? You're already Zissou's fiancé and my brother-in-law. Between us, let's just leave it at that." After saying the last few words, she seemed to have exhausted all her strength. She suddenly pushed him away and ran in the direction of the stairs. On the stairs, she happened to run into Yi Zissou, who was beautifully dressed. Yi Zissou pretended not to see her talking to Jiang Tianhao. She affectionately called out, "Sister Chi, I'm going to a class reunion with Tianhao. Do you want to come?" Ji avoided her burning gaze and forced a smile. "No need. I'm not feeling well. You guys have fun." With that said, she immediately brushed past Yi Zissou and ran upstairs. Soon after, Yi Zissou heard the loud sound of the door closing. She raised her eyebrows proudly. Sure enough, Ji still liked Senior. This was even better. If she had fallen into depravity because of a setback in their relationship, how wonderful would that have been? Ji obviously sad but pretending to be strong hovered in Jiang Tianhao's mind. He clenched his fists and watched her leave with a deep gaze. When he saw Yi Zissou's figure, the corners of his lips curled and a warm smile appeared on his gentle face. Even though she had seen it many times, Yi Zissou's heart still raced when she saw his smile. She smiled shyly and held his arm. She said softly, "Tianhao, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go." "All right." Jiang Tianhao's lips curled beautifully. When he held her arm and left, he secretly glanced in the direction of the stairs. The woman had long disappeared. He felt an inexplicable sense of loss and an uncontrollable anger. She did not return last night. She must have been with another man. Since she liked him, why did she accept another man? A thought flashed through his mind. As if struck by lightning, he suddenly froze in his steps. Could it be that he had already fallen in love with Ji? Impossible. He would never fall in love with the daughter of his father's murderer. Yi Zissou also stopped and touched his face worriedly. "Tianhao, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? You don't look well." Jiang Tianhao suddenly came back to his senses. Yi Zissou in front of him was gentle and lovely. Her delicate face was full of worry. He pursed his lips and habitually curled his lips. "I'm fine. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Let's go. Let's not delay any longer." Yi Zissou uneasily grasped his arm. "Are you really fine? Why don't we not go to the party? I'll accompany you home to rest." The smile on Jiang Tianhao's face became natural. He raised his hand and stroked her hair. "I'm really fine. It's rare for us to get together with our high school classmates. We can't disappoint them." "All right then. I'll listen to you." Yi Zissou leaned on his arm like a little bird. Her lowered eyes flashed with a hint of uneasiness. Tianhao lost his composure just now. Was it because of Ji? Was he putting on an act for her, or was it all real? In front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the second floor, Ji coldly watched the couple leave arm in arm. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Jiang Tianhao, did he think that he was a Casanova and that every woman had to like him? Just wait and see. She would let him know his worth. "Miss Ji." A cold voice came from behind her. Ji eyes narrowed. Qing Sang had actually avoided the Ji family's security system and quietly sneaked up behind her. She was indeed the person sent by Shinja to protect her. She turned around and smiled. Chingsang, have you completed the mission? A faint smile appeared on Chingsang's frosty face. It was as if the ice had just melted. It was dazzlingly beautiful. She took out a folder from her black tights and handed it to Jiyuchi. I finally caught it yesterday. There's a video of Chen Tingfang and Yi Zhaoxian checking into a hotel room, as well as photos of them meeting each other, she said coolly. Jiyuchi didn't take the file in her hand. Instead, she suddenly rushed forward and hugged her. Thank you for your hard work, Chingsang. Chingsang's body stiffened. She was stunned. She had never had physical contact with anyone before. So this was what it felt like. It was soft and warm. Hey, are you okay? Did I scare you? Jiyuchi laughed out loud and waved her hand in front of her eyes. Chingsang's snow-white face was stained with a layer of red. Her eyes flashed a few times, but she quickly regained her composure. Everything is in the file. Do you have any other instructions? Don't be so boring. Call me Yuchi in the future. Jiyuchi laughed heartily and patted her shoulder. Chingsang's lips twitched slightly. She replied expressionlessly, yes. Jiyuchi smiled and shook her head. She opened the safe in front of her and took out a small USB flash drive. This is the evidence of Suja's crimes that I asked Liang Yu to collect. Find a way to hand it to the police. I want Suja to never step out of prison again. In her previous life, Suja had seduced her brother into the path of womanizing and taking drugs. In the end, her brother had been controlled by the Black Flame sect and died in a fight between the Black Flame sect and the Dragon Tiger gang. In this life, she wanted Suja and the Black Flame sect to pay the price. Chingsang carefully kept the USB flash drive. Her face was expressionless, but her heart was in turmoil. She didn't expect young Master Shin to transfer Liang Yu to Jiyuchi. It seemed that Jiyuchi was very important to young Master Shin. Chingsang came and left quietly. Her martial arts skills were amazing. Jiyuchi could only be envious of her. She didn't seem like she was born to practice martial arts. Although she practiced hard every day, she could only deal with ordinary martial arts masters. If she were to meet an international mercenary like Chingsang, she could only wash her neck clean and wait for death. Jiyuchi opened the file and took out a CD as well as several photos. The photos were very clear. There were photos of Chen Tingfang and Yi Zhaoxian holding hands, and there were also photos of them kissing passionately. There were even photos of them rolling around in bed. The scale was very large, and the colors were very dazzling. As for the CD, it was even more colorful. The two of them changed several positions. They were like wolves in their 30s and tigers in their 40s. Jiyuchi watched it as if she was watching a movie. Her expression didn't change. Of course, her main purpose was not to watch the content. Her main purpose was to listen to what they said while rolling on the bed. In the CD, Yi Zhaoxian hugged Chen Tingfang and murmured, Ji Yunhan was taken to a hotel by Azure a few days ago. Unexpectedly, a mysterious person suddenly appeared and rescued Ji Yunhan. According to Miss Yaomei, that night, she didn't see anything clearly. She was knocked out by a red thing. Do you have any thoughts about that mysterious person? Chen Tingfang lay on his chest. Her eyes were still filled with a unique charm after sex. She frowned. I can't guess. That person can't be Jiyuchi, Yi Zhaoxian sneered. Are you stupid? Jiyuchi is just a delicate Mississippi. She doesn't know any martial arts, not to mention rescuing someone under Aja's nose. The last time we kidnapped Jiyuchi and she escaped, I suspected that she had someone backing her. This time, I'm even more certain that the person behind her is really powerful. He can even guess what we want to do. The man's eyes narrowed dangerously. There was a malicious glint in his eyes. Chen Tingfang agreed with his thoughts. Her expression became more serious. She thought for a moment and said, Things have already come to this. We can't give up. No matter who is behind her, I have to get rid of them. When the time comes, the Ji family's assets will be ours. Yi Zhaoxian rubbed her face with a half-smile. Baby, it's no wonder people say that a woman's heart is the most poisonous. Ji Bowen treats you so well. Do you have the heart to deal with him? Chen Tingfang obviously knew that he was testing her. She sneered. He treats me well? He only has the dead Su Meiyu in his heart. No matter how well I do, he won't acknowledge me. He won't treat me as his wife. I must have been blind to have married him back then. Yi Xiaoxian chuckled. Then were you blind to have married me back then? Qin Tingfang glared at him. It's good that you know. I've been screwed over by you two stinky men. You were careless with your investments back then. You didn't know the right person and caused the company to go bankrupt. We're in debt. We're being chased by loan sharks every day. Have I ever complained? You actually want to mortgage me to the creditors. The more she spoke, the angrier and sadder she became. Tears fell uncontrollably. Thinking back to those inhumane days a few years ago, it was really a kind of torture. In the end, she was so angry that she asked her declining family for help. Finally, she divorced Yi Zhaoxian and returned to her family with her daughter. Later, she reunited with Ji Bowen and the two of them continued their relationship. She did live a happy life for a period of time, but life couldn't be perfect. She found that Ji Bowen was still hiding his dead ex-wife in his heart, which was hard for her to accept. When Yi Zhaoxian went bankrupt, Qin Tingfang was afraid of being poor. So, after she married Ji Bowen, she habitually took money and squandered it. She used money to prove her value. He was very frugal and couldn't stand her extravagance. He told her not to play cards with those rich women all day, but she had nothing to do and he didn't accompany her. If she didn't play cards or have fun, how could she pass the time? In addition, as someone's stepmother, Ji Bowen often suspected that she didn't treat the child well, causing her mentality to gradually become twisted. All she thought about was how to seize the Ji family's wealth and no longer relied on those men. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 826. Yi Zhaoxian saw that the more she cried, the more upset she became. He quickly hugged her tightly and patted her back to comfort her. Honey, don't cry. It's all my fault. Isn't it all in the past now? Don't think about the past anymore, okay? Qin Tingfang glared at him angrily. Don't think I don't know that you're trying to get close to me for money. Yi Zhaoxian felt wronged. Honey, aren't you accusing me wrongly? I really missed you, that's why I met you. Don't talk about money. It's hurtful. Qin Tingfang sneered. Fine, let's not talk about money. If Suzhi is not reliable, I won't give you a single cent of the 500,000 we agreed on. After she finished speaking, she got out of his arms and stood up to leave. Yi Zhaoxian grabbed her arm and pulled her back into his arms. Honey, don't be like this. Suzhi is only willing to work for me because of the 500,000. If he doesn't receive the money and tells his sister about it, we'll be asking for trouble. Isn't Su Yanqing your woman? You should deal with her. You're so capable, don't tell me you can't even deal with a woman? Qin Tingfang felt upset at the mention of Su Yanqing. What was so good about that woman from the underground organization? Why did Yi Zhaoxian fall for her? Honey, can we not be jealous of her? Between me and her, we both get what we want. You know that the person I truly love is you. Yi Zhaoxian hugged Qin Tingfang and comforted her. Qin Tingfang's anger gradually dissipated. Although she was reluctant, she still handed the 500,000 check to Yi Zhaoxian. He was right, if Suzhi didn't get the money, he would definitely not let it go. If the matter was exposed, she would also be in trouble. So it was better to take the money out. A portion of her hard-earned private savings was gone. Qin Tingfang's heart ached. She was thinking of a way to extort more money from Ji Bowen. Although Ji Yuqi couldn't guess what Qin Tingfang was thinking, she could tell from Qin Tingfang's pained expression that she was reluctant to part with the money. Ji Yuqi couldn't help but chuckle. A thought flashed through her mind, and she suddenly thought of a way to cut off Qin Tingfang's financial support. If she didn't have financial support, would she be able to bribe others without restraint? The answer, of course not. In this society, it was difficult to do anything without money was the money. After watching the video and obtaining useful information, Ji Yuqi began to think about the next step of her plan. She pondered for a long time and finally, a name appeared in her mind. Her fair fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched for information about Gao Qiao Technology Company on the internet. Soon, a bunch of news popped up. The latest news stated that Gao Qiao Technology Company was about to acquire Wanxing Entertainment. After the acquisition, Gao Qiao Technology Company would have a 40% market share in the gaming industry and become the leader of the gaming industry. As soon as the news came out, the stock price of Gao Qiao Technology Company rose rapidly. After the acquisition was successful, the stock price would definitely rise crazily. For many investors, this was a rare opportunity. Ji Yuqi's lips curled into a sly smile. She tapped her fair fingers on the table. Gao Qiao Technology Company, this is it. After confirming the target, she quickly made a copy of the video of Qin Tingfang's affair and locked it in the safe. It would be useful to take it out at the critical moment. Next, she would be able to get her hands on Qin Tingfang's little treasure. She felt a little excited just thinking about it. As for Qin Tingfang, she was glowing after Yi Zhaoxian's nourishment. However, it didn't last long before her mood turned gloomy. This was because the next morning she received news from Yi Zhaoxian that Su Zhe had messed up Ji Yunhan's matter. He had also gotten into a fight with the Long Hu gang and had been arrested by the police. The police had found a lot of hallucinogens on Su Zhe's body and he might even go to jail. Qin Tingfang was furious. She had paid Yi Zhaoxian $500,000 yesterday. In the end, things had turned out this way. How could she be happy? More importantly, her little treasury was only going out, not going in. If she couldn't deal with Ji Yuqi, that little b*Tsich, and Ji Yunhan, that little bastard, she would first be stifled to death by money. Qin Tingfang was very frustrated these few days. Firstly, she was annoyed that the Ji siblings were still in front of her. Secondly, she was annoyed by the fact that she had no money. She was constantly thinking about how to ask Ji Bowen for money. However, every time she came up with an excuse, she had already used it before. She had no choice but to give up on the idea and think about it again. On this day, Qin Tingfang came downstairs and saw Ji Yuqi sitting on the sofa reading a financial magazine. Ji Yunhan was sitting opposite her and playing games. The siblings were chatting casually. Ji Yunhan was playing games and said, "Sister, didn't you used to hate those magazines the most? Why are you reading them with so much interest today?" Ji Yuqi answered without looking up, "What do you know? There are many interviews with successful people in these financial magazines. I can learn a lot from their interviews." Ji Yunhan snorted. "Come on, I think you're just looking for a handsome guy. It's said that the CEO of that company is a handsome guy who can shock the heavens and make ghosts and gods weep. However, I think he's just SOS. He's not even as handsome as me." "What nonsense are you talking about? That's called Gaoqiao Technology Company. The CEO's name is Yu Lei. He obtained a double doctorate from Cambridge University in England. He's not even 27 years old this year. He's handsome and capable. I heard that he's going to buy Wanxing Entertainment and become the overlord of the gaming industry. You're still wet behind the ears. You'd better learn from him." Ji Yuqi held the magazine and sighed. She was infatuated with Yu Lei's photo. She whispered, "This photo is so good. He's so handsome that it's unreasonable." Qin Tingfang snorted at Ji Yuqi's infatuation. However, she was interested in Yu Lei. Her son-in-law should be a talented, handsome, and rich man. Sigh, what a pity. If only Zissou and Jiang Tianhao didn't have a scandal. "Yuqi, Ahan, I have an appointment with a few friends. I'll go out first. Gigai is at home," Qin Tingfang said with a smile. She grabbed her LV bag and walked out of the house. Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan looked at each other and smiled. They threw the things in their hands on the table at the same time and went upstairs to do their own things. Qin Tingfang went to the beauty salon first. When she was soaking in the hot spring, she met two familiar ladies. They were talking about stocks with a young and beautiful girl. When they saw Qin Tingfang, they greeted her warmly and introduced the young girl to her. "Mrs. Qin, this is Miss Qing Li. Although she's young, she's a famous investment and financial expert in Hong Kong." "Is that so? Miss Qing is really beautiful." Qin Tingfang looked at the young girl with a smile. Something was slowly growing in her mind. Qing Li smiled elegantly. "Mrs. Qin, you're flattering me. How can I compare to your grace and nobility?" "Mrs. Lin, Mrs. Li, Mrs. Qin, nice to meet you. I've already soaked in the hot spring, so I won't disturb the three of you. Let's talk again in the future." Mrs. Lin was reluctant to see her leave, but she was going to do the next beauty project. She didn't want to force her to stay. She could only smile and say that they would talk again next time. Chen Tingfang had a good relationship with Mrs. Lin. Seeing her like this, she couldn't help but be curious. Didn't you just meet? You can't bear to see her leave so soon? Mrs. Lin smiled and said, "You don't know. Just now, Qing Li talked to us about investment and financial management. We learned a lot. To be honest, although our family is rich, the money given by our husband is limited. I've long wanted to use my own private money to earn some pocket money. After hearing Qing Li's words, I want to invest and buy some stocks." Chen Tingfang's eyebrows twitched. Mrs. Lin's words really hit the nail on the head. She pretended not to care and waved her hand. "It's very risky to play stocks. I advise you not to play. Why don't you invest in opening a store and do some small business?" Mrs. Lin sneered. "Invest in a store? Do you think I'm cut out for business? Maybe the store will collapse in less than a month." She wanted to show off the knowledge she learned from Qing Li and said proudly, "Qing Li analyzed more than 10 stocks just now. She said that the stock with the most potential is Gao Qiao Technology stock. Have you heard of Yu Lei? He's the CEO of Gao Qiao Technology. He's young and has a lot of background. The Yu family is one of the richest families in Hanqing. Gao Qiao Technology is also the Yu family's business." Hanqing was a neighboring city of Ying City. Chen Tingfang wasn't familiar with the Yu family. However, she thought that her cousin Lu Jianfeng was working in Hanqing. He must know the few big families in Hanqing like the back of his hand. She made up her mind, but her expression didn't show it. She still looked uninterested. "Forget it. No matter how good Qing Li said it, I still don't dare to try. It'll be troublesome if I lose." Mrs. Lin couldn't be bothered to persuade her again. She started chatting with Mrs. Li again. They were still talking about stocks. It seemed like the two of them were really planning to invest. Chen Tingfang wasn't in the mood to do any more beauty treatments. She finished quickly and walked out of the beauty salon. She asked the driver to take her to the coffee shop she frequented. She chose a seat by the window and stirred the coffee in her cup with one hand and made a call with the other. "Cousin, is it convenient for you to answer the call now?" The man on the other end of the phone was inspecting the construction site with a group of subordinates. When he received the call, he nodded to his secretary and walked to a place where there was no one. The secretary hurriedly greeted everyone with a smile. "President Lu has something to do. Let's continue. Engineer Wang, you said that this building..." Lu Jianfeng stopped at a flat area and smiled. With a gentle voice, he said, "All right, Xiaomin. You can tell me what you want." Chen Tingfang heard his deep and pleasant voice and couldn't help but smile. "Cousin, do you know much about the Yu family in Hanqing?" The Yu family can be said to be the second largest family in Hanqing. The head of the family, Yu Lindong, single-handedly established the Yu family business empire. They are involved in manufacturing, retail, tourism, and many other business sectors. You can think of them as the Shin family of Hanqing. Of course, the Yu family is still slightly inferior to the Shen family. After all, the Shen family is the largest family in Ying City. Even if they were in two different cities, the Shen family and the Yu family could still be compared. Chen Tingfang could feel the power of the Yu family from his simple explanation. Chen Tingfang's eyes flashed and she continued to ask, "Cousin, is there a young master called Yu Lei in the Yu family?" Add, Song Shu 566. Chapter 827. Lu Jianfeng nodded. Other than Hanqing, the Yu clan is also expanding towards Ying City. Yu Lei is the eldest grandson of the Yu clan. He took over the Yu clan's business in Ying City as soon as he returned. This young man is quite capable. The Yu clan's future is probably in his hands. While listening to him, Chen Tingfang weighed the pros and cons in her heart. Just as she was about to make up her mind, Lu Jianfeng suddenly said, "Xiaomin, why are you suddenly interested in the Yu clan? Cousin, you also know that Zissou is not young anymore. Previously, I saw Yu Lei at a banquet and had a good impression of this young man. I want to set him up with Zissou, so I wanted to get some information from you first." Chen Tingfang did not tell the truth. She did not want her cousin to know that she had used her private savings to invest. She felt that this would make him feel that she was not living well. Chen Tingfang did not think deeply about why she had such thoughts. She had already told the lie out of reflex. Lu Jianfeng did not suspect anything. He had always trusted his cousin's words. He frowned slightly and said, "I heard about the scandal that Zissou had caused a while ago even when I was far away in Hanqing. Yu Lei must have heard about it too. I don't think that the Yu clan will accept Zissou. Moreover, Zissou and that guy called Jiang Tianhao are already engaged. If you change your mind, it will only affect Zissou's reputation. You don't think so much. Just let the two of them be together." I just want to find a better man for Zissou," Chen Tingfang's aggrieved voice sounded. Lu Jianfeng's handsome face could not help but reveal a smile. He said gently, "I haven't done anything yet, but you're the one who's aggrieved. Why are you getting more and more childish? I really don't know what to do with you." "Who asked you to be my cousin?" Chen Tingfang smiled charmingly and acted coquettishly without restraint. At this moment, she was like a teenage girl with an indescribable beauty. After ending the call, Chen Tingfang finished the coffee in her cup in a good mood. Now, she had proven that the Yu clan was indeed very capable. As long as she could prove that Gao Qiao Technology's acquisition of Wanxing Entertainment was foolproof, then she would only gain and not lose money in buying Gao Qiao Technology shares. Chen Tingfang turned her head and looked out the window. How could she obtain insider information to prove that the acquisition of Gao Qiao Technology was foolproof? Yes, Zhong. Don't ask why. Just buy it. That's right. 1 million. All for Gao Qiao Technology. Gao Qiao Technology, these words suddenly poured into her ears. Chen Tingfang suddenly turned her head to look at the source of the voice. 2 tables away from her, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses was holding a mobile phone in one hand and moving the keyboard with the other. From his side view, he was very focused on the computer screen, as if there was something on it that attracted him. Chen Tingfang retracted her gaze, but her mind was still there, eavesdropping on the man's phone call with all her attention. The man suppressed his anger and growled, "Just do as I say. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Alright, it's not convenient for me to talk now. Hurry up and buy the shares. If you delay my business, I'll fire you immediately." Pa. The man seemed to be angry. He slammed the laptop shut, then put away the laptop and mobile phone. He glanced at his watch and hurriedly disappeared from the door of the coffee shop. Chen Tingfang quickly stood up and walked out of the door. She didn't know why, but she had an impulse to find out the man's identity. She got into the car and ordered the driver to follow the man's BMW. When she followed the man to a building with the sign, Wanxing Entertainment, she saw Miss at the front desk being polite and respectful to the man. She suddenly understood. However, she still couldn't believe it. After the man walked into the elevator and went upstairs, Chen Tingfang quickly walked to the front desk and asked with a smile, "Miss, was the person you were talking to just now an employee of Wanxing Entertainment?" Miss at the front desk smiled politely. "Yes, he is our company's finance minister. May I ask why you are looking for our minister?" "Nothing, thank you." Chen Tingfang tried to suppress her wildly beating heart and turned to leave calmly. After Chen Tingfang's black car drove away from the building, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and carrying a briefcase walked to the front desk with steady steps. He placed the envelope with cash in front of Miss at the front desk and smiled. "Thank you for your cooperation." "You're welcome." Miss at the front desk smiled sweetly. She could get $10,000 just by telling a lie. Where else could she find such a good deal? She didn't expect that because of her lie, another person would lose a lot of money. Liang Yu pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose with satisfaction. Like a successful person, he carried his briefcase and walked out of the building. Under the sunlight, his slender fingers holding the phone were beautiful. "Miss Ji, everything went well." Ji Yu Chia, he admired this woman more and more. She was actually able to see through the Yu clan's twists and turns and came up with such a complicated scam. Moreover, she was able to predict Chen Tingfang's personality perfectly. This woman was not simple. Only a man like young Master Shen would be worthy of her. Liang Yu raised his eyebrows and a smile flashed through his starry eyes. He was indescribably elegant. "Sister, what the hell are you doing? Ji Yuqi suddenly became interested in finance these days. She held the computer and read the news every day, which made Ji Yunhan confused. Ji Yuqi raised her head and smiled mysteriously. Hun, let's register a company abroad. Sister, are you having a fever? Ji Yunhan threw himself in front of Ji Yuqi and put his hand on her forehead to check her temperature. Go away, I'm being serious with you. Ji Yuqi pushed his hand away and told him the plan to deal with Qin Tingfang seriously. Finally, she said, I asked Qing Sang and Liang Yu to induce her to buy the shares of Gao Qiao Technology. With her character, she will definitely lose everything. The reason why I want to set up a company is... She told him her plan. Ji Yunhan opened his mouth wide and looked at her as if she was an alien. Finally, he came back to his senses and said, Sister, you're playing a big game. Are you sure it will go as you wish? Of course. Ji Yuqi just gave an affirmative answer without further explanation. She couldn't tell him that she was reborn and knew a lot about Gao Qiao technology. Therefore, Ji Yuqi changed the topic. Ahan, have you solved the problem between you and Lu Sisi? Ji Yunhan's face darkened at the mention of this. He ran his fingers through his hair impatiently. I don't know what to do. Until now, she still won't tell me the truth. Ji Yuqi patted him on the shoulder. Do you still like her? Ji Yunhan froze and fell silent. After a while, he said indifferently, I do, but it's impossible between us. Ji Yuqi said softly, you're a man now. No matter what decision you make, sister will support you. But don't let yourself regret it. Ji Yunhan sat alone on the sofa and spaced out for a long time. After some time, he suddenly jumped up, grabbed his car keys, and ran out the door. The lake was covered in green grass. Weeping willows brushed across the surface of the lake, creating ripples. A young man and a young woman looked at each other as they silently strolled along the lakeside path. When they reached the end of the lakeside, Ji Yunhan sat down on the ground and gazed into the distance at the sparkling lake. Lu Sisi hesitated for a moment before sitting down next to him. Sisi. Ji Yunhan was still looking at the lake and said calmly, Do you still remember the first day of school? Lu Sisi sensed that the atmosphere was a little strange. Although she didn't understand why he brought up the past, she still smiled and answered cooperatively, I remember. The first day of school, you went to the school to register yourself. You couldn't find the academic affairs office, so I led you there. Yeah. Actually, I fell in love with you back then. Ji Yunhan's lips curved slightly. He looked into the distance with nostalgia, as if he wanted to see the past. Lu Sisi was slightly stunned. She seemed to have thought of something. Her lips moved, but she didn't say anything in the end. Her dark eyes were filled with sorrow. Ji Yunhan's expression became lonely, and his tone was so lonely. It was a mistake from the beginning. Since it's a mistake, let's let it go back to its original place. Sisi, let's break up. Even though she had imagined the scene of him breaking up many times and tried hard to tell herself not to be sad and cry, when she really faced it, tears couldn't help but flow out of her eyes. Lu Sisi turned her head in a panic. She didn't want him to see her tear-stained face. She tried to keep her voice cold and calm. You already know, right? Ji Yunhan clenched his fists and slowly closed his eyes. He forced himself not to look at her sad face. His voice was very low. That's right. I don't want to blame you. After all, you have your difficulties. Actually, as long as you trust me a little more, many problems can be solved. For example, money problems weren't difficult for him at all. At most, he would sell the antiques his grandfather had left him to help her pay off her gambling debts. Unfortunately, Lu Sisi was too arrogant. She thought she could solve everything, but she didn't expect to personally push the person who loved her into the abyss of pain. Sisi, do you know what they plan to do to me? If you knew that I was about to fall into the abyss and be tainted with sin, would you still give me to that group of demons? Sisi, I hate you for lying to me, but I hate you even more for not trusting me. If you had trusted me a little more, we wouldn't have fallen into this situation. His eyes, which had been dry, became moist because of the pain in his heart. Ji Yunhan didn't dare to open his eyes. He was afraid that if he did, he would expose his weakness. Lu Sisi hugged her knees and buried her head in them. Her tears had already wet her clothes. Ji-Yoon-han stood beside her and placed a bank card at her feet. He said, "There's 500,000 in here. The password is your birthday. Goodbye, Cece." The sound of footsteps gradually faded away. The heart-wrenching pain was about to tear loose Cece apart. She finally burst into tears. Only at the moment of loss did she know how painful it was. She thought that everything was just a scam, but she had already given her heart from the beginning. "Ji-Yoon-han, if I could choose again, I wouldn't let you down again." Ji-Yoon-han stood on a small bridge in the distance. He looked at the girl crying hysterically by the lake. The pain in his heart was no less than hers. He even wanted to go back a few times, but in the end he only punched the railing of the bridge. Even if the back of his hand was scratched and blood flowed, he acted as if he didn't see it. A long time later, Ji-Yuchi asked him if he regretted giving up on Lu Cece. Attention, Song Shu 566. Chapter 828. He thought about it for a long time and smiled lightly. He regretted it, but even if he was given another chance, he wouldn't change his mind. Even if he took care of it carefully, a love that had already deteriorated would still die early. They had missed each other after all. Ching Sang sent the evidence of Suja's crimes to the police station anonymously. Among them, he had forced women into prostitution and sold drugs. Suja could be sentenced to 5 to 10 years in prison. When Suja's father, Su Bingkuan, received the news, he immediately hired the most famous lawyer in Ing City. He also used his connections to meet the prosecutor in charge of the trial. He wanted to use coercion and bribery to make the prosecutor comply. However, he didn't know that the prosecutor had already received Shinja's promise in advance. As long as the prosecutor handled the case impartially, the Shen family would guarantee the personal safety of the prosecutor and his family. The Shen family had a complicated political relationship and strong power. Since Shenja had made a promise, the prosecutor would of course follow his heart and handle the case impartially. Suja was sentenced to 20 years in prison. When the verdict was announced, the leader of the Black Flame clan, Su Bingkuan, fainted. He had a son at an old age and had hoped that his son would inherit the family business and bring the Black Flame clan to greater heights. He didn't expect that his son would be arrested and sent to the police station and spend the rest of his life in prison. How could he not be angry? How could he not hate him? Su Yanqing was as angry as Su Bingkuan. Although Su Yanqing was a woman, she had been in the underworld with her uncles since she was young. She was arrogant and domineering. However, she doted on her younger brother who was 5 years younger than her the most. In front of him, she immediately turned from a tigress to Hello Kitty. Even if her brother wanted the stars in the sky, she would find a way to pluck them for him. Suja's imprisonment was undoubtedly a huge blow to her. She was once a proud woman, but she had become quiet overnight. She knew that the weight on her shoulders had increased. She had to stand behind her father and carry the entire Black Flame sect on her shoulders. On the day of the verdict, Ji-Yuchi wore a pair of sunglasses and sat in the corner of the gallery. She witnessed the scene of Su Bingkuan fainting, and also the scene of Su Yanqing's tears rolling down her cheeks. Her dark eyes, which were covered by the sunglasses, flashed with a fanatical light. Her fingers clenched the seat tightly. Yes, that's it. Suffer for your loved ones. Otherwise, how can you understand my pain? The crowd in the courtroom dispersed. Ji-Yuchi walked down the empty corridor and gazed at the exit in the distance. A faint smile crossed her lips. It was time to take out that thing and add another shackle to Chen Tingfang's overburdened body. "Miss, your express delivery." An underling knocked on the door and placed a package on Su Yanqing's desk. Su Yanqing pinched her eyebrows and waved her hand to dismiss him. This was a mysterious express delivery. There was neither the sender's name nor the sender's address. If it weren't for the thin envelope, she would have been worried that there was a bomb inside. She hesitated for a second and quickly opened the envelope. She took out a CD from the envelope. Su Yanqing frowned and stuffed the CD into the DVD player. After a few seconds, an image appeared on the screen. In a luxurious hotel room, a man and woman were passionately hugging each other, expressing their love for each other in the most primitive way. The disgusting image played in front of her eyes and the harsh sounds echoed in her ears. Su Yanqing's face became paler and paler. Suddenly, she covered her mouth and almost vomited. She rushed forward and picked up the remote control to fast forward. Her eyes were filled with hatred and she glared at the two people on the screen. Okay, let's not talk about money. If Suja is not reliable, I won't give you a single cent of the $500,000 we agreed on. Honey, don't be like this. Suja is only willing to work for me because of the $500,000. If he doesn't receive the money and tells his sister about this, we'll be asking for trouble. Isn't Su Yanqing your woman? You should settle her. You're so capable, can't you even settle a woman? Honey, can't we not be jealous of her? Between us, we both get what we want. You know that the person I truly love is still you. The words that came out of the couple's mouths were like a raging fire that burned Su Yanqing's heart. It also burned her anger to the extreme. Her eyes shot out anger and resentment. Damned couple, they actually used her. They actually used Aj. If it wasn't for them, how could Aj be in jail? At this moment, Su Yanqing wanted nothing more than to rip out the tendons of that pair of bitches and tear out their throats. Someone knocked on the office door. Su Yanqing, who had lost her rationality due to hatred, was pulled back to reality. She quickly turned off the DVD player and stared expressionlessly at the person who walked in. The person suddenly felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar and couldn't help but tremble. He quickly reported his work respectfully. Miss, our territory in New Street has been taken away by the Dragon Tiger Gang. Do you think we should take it back? The conflict between the Black Flame sect and the Dragon Tiger Gang had been going on for a long time. However, it was during the fight between Aja and the Dragon Tiger Gang that the Dragon Tiger Gang took advantage of. After Aja was captured, the Dragon Tiger Gang took the opportunity to take over the New Street, causing the Black Flame sect to suffer a huge loss. Of course, this debt would be blamed on Yi Zhaoxian and Qin Tingfang. Su Yanqing's cold gaze didn't waver. No need. Let's give New Street to the Dragon Tiger Gang. I'll talk to Gao Tianhu personally. The Black Flame sect had suffered a huge loss this time. Other than Suja, a few of their leaders had also been arrested and sent to jail. If they continued to fight with the Dragon Tiger Gang, it would only give them an excuse to plunder. She wanted to use the excuse of peace talks and coexist peacefully with the Dragon Tiger Gang to buy time for them to recuperate. The little brother responded and retreated. Su Yanqing used the dagger to cut the DVD. The ruthlessness in her eyes was chilling. She laughed coldly. Yi Zhaoxian, since you dared to betray me, you'll have to pay the price for betraying me. And Qin Tingfang, don't even think about escaping. Perhaps it was because hatred had blinded her, or perhaps it was because, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Su Yanqing didn't even consider who had sent the DVD to her. Of course, even if she did investigate, she wouldn't be able to trace it back to Ji Yuqi. The days were calm and peaceful. Ji Yuqi waited leisurely. Everything was going according to her plan. It wouldn't be long before Qin Tingfang was in big trouble. Qin Tingfang was very unlucky that day. Her handbag was stolen by a thief when she was shopping with a few wealthy ladies. Not only did she lose her bank card, she also lost her mobile phone. The items weren't expensive, but it was troublesome to replace them. Fortunately, there was always something that made her happy. The stock price of Gao Qiao Technology was rising. The CEO, Yu Lei, announced on the media that the acquisition negotiations had entered the final stage. Gao Qiao Technology would soon sign the agreement with Wanxing Entertainment. After returning home, the butler passed her a letter, saying that it was from a stranger. Qin Tingfang was curious. She opened the letter and saw that it was from Yi Zhaoxian. Yi Zhaoxian said that Su Yanqing had begun to suspect that someone was behind Suja's imprisonment. It wasn't convenient for him to contact her on the phone, so he had used the most primitive method to contact her. He also asked her to meet at the hotel tomorrow to discuss their next step. Qin Tingfang had been married to Yi Zhaoxian for many years. She could tell that it was indeed written by him, so she didn't suspect anything. She thought about it for a while and decided to meet him. After all, Yi Zhaoxian was still useful to her. On the other hand, Yi Zhaoxian received a text from Qin Tingfang. "Hubby, I want to talk to you about something." See you at the usual place tomorrow. Be there or be square. The next day, at the Galaxy Hotel, Yi Zhaoxian avoided Su Yanqing's subordinates and drove to the Galaxy Hotel. He booked a room and waited for more than half an hour. Chen Tingfang still hadn't appeared, but he didn't take it to heart. She was always late for dates anyway. He simply took a shower and lay on the bed to rest. On the other hand, Chen Tingfang was about to go out for the date when Ji Bowen suddenly called her from the office. Tingfang, hurry to the airport. Wanhua is back. Chen Tingfang was shocked. Wanhua is back? Why didn't she tell us in advance? Ji Bowen sounded helpless. You know Wanhua's character very well. If it wasn't for Qinxian calling me from abroad, I wouldn't have known that she had arrived in Ying City today. Hurry to the airport and pick her up. Her plane will arrive in an hour. But I got it. Don't worry, I'll definitely bring her home. After ending the call, Chen Tingfang was extremely depressed. Ji Wanhua, since you've already settled abroad, why did you come back? Speaking of this Ji Wanhua, Chen Tingfang didn't have a good impression of her at all. Instead, she was full of resentment. All right, she couldn't go on a date with Yi Zhaoxian now. She even brought back a jinx. Chen Tingfang was furious. She wanted to call Yi Zhaoxian to cancel the date, but she was worried that Su Yanqing would eavesdrop on his phone and find out that they were having an affair. She could only give up. Anyway, Yi Zhaoxian wasn't stupid. If she didn't show up for more than 2 hours, he should be able to guess that something had happened. Yi Zhaoxian fell asleep as he waited. In a daze, he heard someone ring the doorbell. He sleepily got up, walked to the door and opened it. Without looking at the person outside, he complained, "You're too slow today. I've been waiting for you for more than an hour." Is that so? A cold and familiar voice came from outside the door. Yi Zhaoxian suddenly woke up. Several thoughts flashed through his mind, but he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, "Yeah, Yanqing, you're too slow. I almost thought that you didn't see the note I left for you." Su Yanqing's beautiful face was cold. Her cold gaze swept across his body. His white bathrobe was slightly open, revealing his firm chest. Her lips curled slightly and her voice was extremely cold. "I almost thought that you really left me a note." Yi Zhaoxian's heart tightened. He reached out his arm and wrapped it around her waist. He said softly, "I saw that you weren't in a good mood recently, so I wanted to invite you here to relax." As he spoke, he walked into the room with her in his arms. Everything was so natural and honest, as if he wasn't afraid that she would discover any secrets. Su Yanqing only felt that the large palm around her waist was like the tongue of a venomous snake. It was so disgusting that she wanted to vomit. She grabbed his wrist and suddenly exerted force, venting all her anger. She used so much force that even a man like Yi Zhaoxian couldn't bear it. He didn't shake off her hand. Instead, he gritted his teeth. His handsome face was covered with dark clouds. He suppressed his anger and said, "Yanqing, what's wrong with you?" Welfare, Shinwu 799. Chapter 829. Su Yanqing suddenly smiled. That smile was so beautiful that Yi Zhaoxian almost lost his mind. She leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Say, how long have we been together?" Yi Zhaoxian's heart was beating fast. He knew Su Yanqing's methods. The brighter her smile, the more dangerous it was. He suspected that she already knew about the matter between him and Chen Tingfang. He was already vigilant, but a nostalgic smile appeared on his face. "It's been 5 years. If it wasn't because you refused to accept my proposal, you would be my wife now." "Your wife?" Su Yanqing whispered. A strange smile flashed through her eyes. "Isn't your wife Chen Tingfang? She's just my ex-wife." Before Yi Zhaoxian could finish his words, he felt a cold sensation on his neck. A dagger was already pressed against his skin. As long as she used a little force, the sharp blade would cut his throat. His expression changed and he said in a low voice, "Yanqing, don't be agitated. If there's anything, we can talk about it." "Unfortunately, I have nothing to say to you." Su Yanqing played with the dagger and gestured at his throat. She seemed to be thinking about where to start. "Yanqing, don't be like this. If there's a problem, just say it. We can slowly solve it, okay?" Yi Zhaoxian was so nervous that his back was drenched in cold sweat. She used a little force and the dagger cut his skin. A sharp pain immediately came. Beads of blood quickly emerged from the wound and flowed down his neck. Su Yanqing laughed in a low voice. Her laughter seemed to come from the depths of hell. It was so gloomy that it made people tremble. A bone-chilling chill drilled into his bones and fear grew in his heart like weeds. She didn't answer his words. Instead, she asked in a low voice, "Do you know the consequences of betraying me?" Yanqing, calm down. Yi Zhaoxian's forehead was drenched in cold sweat, drop by drop falling on the carpet. Su Yanqing laughed softly. The cold dagger moved up and down his cheek. Her warm breath sprayed on his neck. A layer of goosebumps immediately appeared on his neck. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and fiercely bit his aorta. Ah! In the mirror, a woman in red was tightly hugging a man in a white bathrobe. The woman bent over the man's neck and bit hard, causing blood to spurt out. The man struggled violently and howled in pain. The woman moved her left hand and quickly cut his throat with a dagger. The man's painful howls stopped abruptly and disappeared into the black hole of his throat. The man's eyes widened in despair as he watched his own blood staining the white bathrobe. Because he was suffocating, his mouth was wide open. He tried to breathe, but the air escaped from his broken throat and could not enter his lungs. His eyeballs protruded more and more, becoming bloodshot as his life force slowly slipped away. The woman would not let him die so easily. She moved again and stabbed the sharp dagger into the man's chest. The man's body twitched violently, and the light in his eyes became dimmer and dimmer. The woman did not even blink. She quickly pulled out the dagger and moved it under his abdomen. She raised the dagger, and a black thing with blood rolled on the carpet. "The man who betrayed me, I want him to be a eunuch in his next life." The woman bit the man's neck and said the last sentence. The man's struggling movements became weaker and weaker, and finally he stopped completely. Blood dripped down, and the woman suddenly raised her head. Her cold eyes looked at herself in the mirror. Her white cheeks were stained with blood, and there was a kind of cruel beauty. She loosened her hands, and the man fell on the carpet. The white bathrobe had long been soaked in blood, as if it was soaked in blood. Su Yanqing expressionlessly threw away the dagger, walked into the bathroom, and turned on the shower. The cold water poured down from the top of her head, washing away the blood on her body, but it could not wash away the sin on her body. When she changed her clothes and came out, Yi Zhaoxian's body had been taken away, and the carpet had been replaced. Even the smell of blood in the air had been dispelled by the air freshener. Everything was normal, as if there had never been a murder here. Ding! The elevator arrived. Wearing sunglasses, Su Yanqing walked into the elevator. Suddenly, her phone rang. "Miss, what should we do with that man?" Su Yanqing smiled and said, "Feed the dog." The man who betrayed her had only one ending, and that was death. As for that bitch, it depended on her mood. She had planned to send someone to steal Qin Tingfang's phone, use it to send a message to Yi Zhaoxian, and trick Yi Zhaoxian into going to the hotel. At the same time, she would trick Qin Tingfang into going to the hotel under Yi Zhaoxian's name. She would deal with the scumbag man and bitch together. She did not know whether Qin Tingfang was lucky, or she had been prepared for it. She actually dodged the bullet. Thinking of something interesting, Su Yanqing's gloomy eyes lit up with excitement. Su Yanqing thought that she had dealt with Yi Zhaoxian's matter very cleanly. Other than a few loyal subordinates, no one else knew about it. However, they did not know that Qing Sang had already installed a mini-camera in the hotel room. It turned out that Ji Yuqi had already predicted that Su Yanqing would take revenge on Yi Zhaoxian and Qin Tingfang. Therefore, she had asked Qing Sang to follow Yi Zhaoxian. After he had checked into the hotel, she had secretly sneaked into his room and installed a mini-camera while he was asleep. She had recorded the entire process of Su Yanqing's murder. Su Yanqing, this woman is really ruthless. Ji Yuqi felt a chill in her heart when she saw the bloody scene. She couldn't help but sigh. Even Qing Sang, who was used to seeing dead people, couldn't help but frown. Ji Yuqi decided not to eat meat for 3 days. She rubbed her forehead and muttered, "If Su Yanqing finds out that I was the one who set Su Zhi up, she will definitely want to cut me into pieces." This video is really a treasure. If Su Yanqing were to go against her in the future, this evidence would be a powerful weapon to send Su Yanqing to jail. Jiuqi thought to herself that Chen Tingfang was lucky to have escaped death. However, she wasn't willing to let her die so easily. Living a life worse than death was the best torture, wasn't it? The familiar ringtone of the phone interrupted her reverie. She looked at the familiar name on the caller ID, and the corners of her lips curled up involuntarily. Her eyes were filled with a gentle smile. Qing Sang sensibly retreated to a corner to avoid eavesdropping on their conversation. Chi-Chi, Shinja's deep and magnetic voice entered her ears. Her heart suddenly started to beat faster and the blood in her body started to boil. She lowered her eyes and her long eyelashes covered the sparkling light in her eyes. She bit her lips and asked softly, "What's the matter?" Shinja was silent for a moment. There was an ambiguous atmosphere between them. Jiuqi thought of his confession that night and her heart beat faster. She wanted to ask him what was the matter, but she didn't dare to open her mouth. She could only wait silently. After a long silence, the person on the other end of the phone finally called her again. "Chi-Chi, I'm hungry." Jiuqi was speechless. As expected, she shouldn't have had too many fantasies about this foodie. But why did she feel slightly disappointed? Jiuqi coughed to cover it up. She deliberately raised her voice, as if that would give her more confidence. "Oh, if you're hungry, then order takeout. I don't have time to prepare lunch for you today." Gulp. There was a strange sound coming from the phone. Jiuqi's mouth twitched. "Young Master Shin, do you even know how to take care of yourself?" "Oh, although takeout doesn't taste good and it's not nutritious, I'll listen to Chi-Chi and order takeout." Shinja's voice was calm and calm. It was as if he hadn't made the embarrassing sound just now. Jiuqi felt uncomfortable. What did he mean by it doesn't taste good and it's not nutritious? "Young Master Shin, are you deliberately making me feel guilty? I won't fall for your trick." However, she replied, Don't order takeout. This miss suddenly realized that there's nothing to do this afternoon. "Do you know how to make kung pao mushrooms?" "My office building is." The Ji family's villa was at least an hour's drive away from the Shun family's office building. By the time she prepared the food and sent it over, he would probably be so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back. She didn't know what he was doing. She muttered to herself, but her heart still ached for him. Jiuqi rushed to the kitchen as fast as she could. Fortunately, there were many kinds of ingredients in the kitchen, so the dish Shinja had ordered could be made. In addition, she stir-fried 2 more dishes and boiled a soup. She put it in a lunchbox and hurried out. Jiuqi walked into the Shun family's building with the lunchbox. Miss at the front desk saw her and immediately stood up. She bowed politely. Miss Ji, the vice president is already waiting for you in the office. Please follow me." Jiuqi was surprised. It was her first time at the Shun family's company, but Miss at the front desk looked very familiar. What was going on? She didn't know that this was not Miss at the front desk, but Shinja's secretary who was ordered to receive her in the hall. "Okay, thank you." Jiuqi smiled. Under the guidance of Miss, they took the elevator to the 56th floor. The secretary led her directly to the vice president's office and knocked on the door. When she heard the person in the office say, "Come in," she opened the door and made an inviting gesture. "Miss Ji, please come in." "Thank you." Jiuqi naturally tucked her hair behind her ears and walked elegantly into the office. This was the first time Jiuqi saw Shinja working seriously. Behind the large mahogany desk, the handsome man sat firmly on the office chair. The gentle sunlight shone through the curtains and shone on his body, outlining his perfect figure. His curly eyelashes cast a faint shadow on his eyelids and his high nose bridge made him look like a Greek god. His serious expression added to his charm. Jiuqi was almost mesmerized by him. He suddenly raised his head to look at her, a faint smile appearing on his exquisite face. His thin lips curved slightly and his voice was clear and pleasant to the ear. "Come here." Jiuqi seemed to be possessed. Following his command, she couldn't help but move towards him. He stood up. With his back facing the sun, his white shirt looked otherworldly. When she came closer, his slender fingers took the lunchbox from her hand and casually placed it on the desk. Then, he opened his arms and pulled her into his embrace. Her soft body leaned against his chest, and her unique fragrance wafted into his nostrils. A certain empty spot in his heart was instantly filled by her. Shenja curled his lips in satisfaction and naturally rested his head on her shoulder. His clear voice was filled with longing. "Chi-Chi, I missed you so much." They hadn't seen each other for a few days, but he missed her so much. So this was the feeling of liking someone. Attention, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 830. Ji-Yuchi's cheeks flushed red. She hadn't been paying attention for a moment, so when he pulled her into his arms, she didn't feel any disgust. In fact, she even felt a little elated. When she heard his explicit confession, her heart began to beat abnormally faster. She wasn't an ignorant little girl. She understood why she was acting abnormally. She was sure that she had feelings for him. Maybe it was because she had indulged in his gentleness in her previous life, or maybe it was because she was moved by his silent affection in this life. He was like a fool, giving without asking for anything in return. Her heart was unbelievably soft. Since she had recognized her own feelings, there was no need to run away. She slowly reached out and circled her arms around his waist. She leaned her head on his chest and listened to his heartbeat that had suddenly become intense. She smiled sweetly without a sound. "Shinja, that's great. In this life, we won't miss each other again." The smile on her lips suddenly froze. The image of Shinja sitting in the prison visitation room in handcuffs appeared in her mind. She felt an indescribable pain in her heart. She hugged the man in front of her tightly and whispered, "Shinja, promise me one thing. Don't wait for me anymore." Shinja had once said in prison that he would wait for her, wait until she left Jiang Tianhao's side. "Fool, I'm already dead. You won't be able to wait for anything. Don't wait anymore." Shinja's body stiffened, and his deep eyes suddenly set off a storm. His hands tightly wrapped around her waist, and the anger that gushed out almost drowned her. His voice was extremely cold and heavy. "I refuse." He could feel her tears wetting his clothes. She was like a small animal that had been drenched in the rain. She shivered in his arms and cried, "Shinja, even if you lie to me and say that you won't wait for me anymore." Shinja's body was very tense. His face was so gloomy that water could be squeezed out of it. His chest felt like it had been struck by a sharp sword, and his heart was in waves of pain. She didn't want him to love her. This thought circled around his mind like a curse. The wind roared wildly and wanted to tear him apart. But he couldn't refuse her pleas. He closed his eyes to hide the pain in them and said word by word, "I won't wait for you anymore." After saying this, his strength seemed to have left his body in an instant. His back leaned against the desk, supporting his body with difficulty. His head was lowered, and his fine black hair covered his eyebrows and eyes. He maintained this position stiffly. Ji-Yuchi was crying and laughing at the same time. "Shinja, you won't wait for me anymore. Please don't wait for me anymore." Shinja's entire heart was in so much pain that it was numb. His body was as stiff as a stone statue. He wanted to push the woman in his arms away. His palm landed on her shoulder, and just as he was about to exert force, the little girl in his arms suddenly raised her head. Her face was covered in tears, but her red lips were blooming with a brilliant smile. Her clear voice was like the sound of nature. "Shinja, let's be together." Shinja was stunned, thinking that he was hallucinating. The man in front of her had a dazed expression and his eyes were blurred. It was very different from his usual calm and rational self. Ji-Yuchi couldn't help but laugh softly. The little girl's soft laughter was like a cat's paw, scratching Shinja's heart. It was itchy and numb, and the cold blood in his body gradually flowed back to his heart. His misty eyes regained their coldness, and his handsome face was cold. His voice was hoarse, like an unpolished stone. "Are you serious?" Ji-Yuchi's tear-stained face smiled even brighter. Under his scrutinizing gaze, she nodded slightly. Her fair cheeks couldn't help but be stained with a thin layer of red. Ecstasy surged in his heart. Shinja was sure that he wasn't dreaming. He pulled her into his arms and supported the back of her head with his hand. His deep voice sounded above her head. Don't think about going back on your words in the future. He sounded like he was gnashing his teeth. Ji-Yuchi wanted to laugh again, but at this time, she should be serious. So she bit her lip and held back her laughter. She said seriously, I won't. I won't go back on my words for the rest of my life. Shenja's tense body completely relaxed. The soft person in his arms had a fatal attraction, and he didn't want to let go of her for even a moment. Ji-Yuchi poked his firm chest with her fingertips and said softly, Aren't you hungry? If you don't eat now, the food will get cold. A certain arrogant man reluctantly let go of her. Layers of boxes filled with delicious delicacies were neatly placed on the table. Ji-Yuchi scooped a bowl of rice and placed it in front of Shinja. She smiled gently. Eat quickly. It won't taste good if it gets cold. Shinja's lips curled up slightly. He used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of fresh mushroom and fed it to her mouth like he was coaxing a child. Open your mouth. Ji-Yuchi blushed and avoided his chopsticks. No, you can eat by yourself. I want you to eat with me. He blinked, his eyes sparkling. Oh, men who acted cute were the most shameless. But a certain woman who was shameless enough to eat the food on his chopsticks, where was her integrity? After the meal, Ji-Yuchi wanted to go home, but Shinja refused and insisted that she stay to accompany him to work. Ji-Yuchi was speechless. She didn't know anything, and she would only cause trouble for him if she stayed. But seeing a certain someone's eager gaze, she could only nod and agree to stay. After the meal, there was an hour of lunch break. The two of them lay side by side on the couch in the lounge. Ji-Yuchi couldn't help but think of the days when he was recuperating in the Gu residence. They also rested together like this. The corners of her lips curled up. She turned her head to look at the man beside her. His burning gaze was also fixed on her. He reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear, his eyes smiling. The atmosphere was indescribably warm. The office was very quiet. The two of them sat side by side and dealt with their own work. The difference was that Shinja was dealing with documents, while Ji-Yuchi was hugging the computer and playing games. She was worried that she would affect Shinja, so she put on her headset. Her slender fingers held the mouse and clicked on it quickly, making clicking sounds. After Shinja finished reading a document, he naturally turned to look at the person beside him. She was staring at the computer screen with full concentration, seemingly very nervous. Her exquisite and perfect side profile was almost flawless. His eyes flickered for a moment and slowly slid down. Her pink lips were as delicate as a rose. For some reason, he really wanted to taste them. His gaze became more and more intense. A ball of fire seemed to have ignited in his heart, burning him until his whole body felt uncomfortable. Shinja forced himself to retract his gaze, but in the next second, he couldn't help but sneak a glance at a certain someone's lips. He quietly moved his butt closer to her and stretched his neck. Just a little bit more. Oh yeah, I won. Ji-Yuchi, who had beaten her opponent to a pulp, excitedly stretched out her arms and shouted. She then turned her head to share her joy with Shinja. Then a beautiful accident happened. The moment she turned her head, her lips just happened to touch his. Both of them widened their eyes in disbelief. Shinja blinked and blinked again. He suddenly reached out his hand and held the back of her head, closing the distance between them. After Ji-Yuchi recovered from her shock, her cheeks flushed red. She pushed him away in a panic and jumped down from the chair. She was like a frightened little white rabbit as she bounced back. The beautiful touch disappeared, and Shinja touched his lips in disappointment. Ji-Yuchi's face darkened. Hey, don't look like you haven't had enough. That was really just an accident. With this accident, Ji-Yuchi didn't dare to stay any longer. She felt that the little white rabbit was in danger of turning into a big bad wolf at any time. Well, Shinja, I'll leave you to your work. I'll go home first. After saying this, Ji-Yuchi quickly picked up the food box and moved towards the door. Shinja strode forward with his long legs and stopped her in her tracks. His bright smile coupled with his handsome features made him look like a glowing object, firmly attracting people's attention. His well-defined fingers gently stroked the hair by her ear, and his clear voice was incomparably gentle. Chi-Chi, I'm very happy. Ji-Yuchi's cheeks started to heat up under his affectionate gaze. She didn't have the courage to give him a goodbye kiss, so she quickly hugged him and released him just as quickly. She playfully waved her hand. I'm very happy too. Bye-bye. Ji Yuqi was in a very good mood. This good mood lasted until she reached home. Her beautiful phoenix eyes curved into crescents. With one hand behind her back, she leisurely stepped into the house. Yuqi, you're back. Quick, take a look. Who's here? Chen Tingfang's enthusiastic laughter sounded in her ears. There were two women sitting on the sofa in the living room. One of them was Chen Tingfang, who was full of smiles. The other woman looked to be in her 30s. She was dressed in a pastel yellow dress and had exquisite and beautiful eyebrows. Her lips curved into a perfect curve. Every smile and every movement seemed to have been programmed by a computer and was impeccable. Ji Yuqi squealed happily before the beautiful woman could speak. She opened her arms and threw herself into the beautiful woman's embrace. Her eyes lit up with joy. Little aunt, why didn't you tell me you were coming back? I could have gone to the airport to pick you up. Didn't Qinxian come back? Ahan was still talking about him a few days ago. The beautiful woman was Ji Wanhua. She was the adopted daughter of Ji Bowen's second uncle. She had a good relationship with Ji Bowen since she was young. After Yuqi was born, she had married off to America. However, she would return to visit her family every year, so Ji Yuqi and her brother were quite close to her. Ji Wanhua stroked Ji Yuqi's hair. Her smile was still impeccable. You little girl, you're still as noisy as when you were young. Why can't you grow up? Qin Xian has to prepare for the entrance exam and can't return to China. He asked me to send his regards to you and Ton. Ji Yuqi sat beside her and hugged her arm naturally. She asked with a smile, Little aunt, where's my little uncle? Why didn't he come back with you? The smile on Ji Wanhua's face faded. She said calmly, I divorced your little uncle. Ji Yuqi was shocked as if she had heard explosive news. However, her heart was as clear as a mirror. Ji Wanhua had married an American Chinese man. That man had been doing business in Taiwan for many years and had raised who knew how many prostitutes. Because the distance was too far, Ji Wanhua had been kept in the dark. In the end, one of the prostitutes came all the way to America with a big belly and knelt in front of her, begging for her approval. Just like that, Ji Wanhua divorced the American Taiwanese man. The court awarded Qinxian to her. She also had Qinxian change his surname to Ji, completely cutting off all contact with her ex-husband. If things had developed to this point, Ji Yuqi would sympathize with her aunt. She would get close to her and treat her sincerely. However, she didn't expect that Ji Wanhua was also a beautiful snake. She looked close to you, but in reality, when you weren't paying attention, she would viciously bite your throat. Awesome novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 831. Thinking of this, Ji Yuqi's shocked expression turned into one of heartache. She hugged Ji Wanhua tightly and comforted her sensibly. Little auntie, don't be sad. It's little uncle's loss for him to miss you. Little auntie will definitely find someone better. A crack suddenly appeared in Ji Wanhua's calm eyes. The girl's soft body and her arms exuded a faint fragrance, making her feel indescribably irritated. She stiffly stroked the girl's soft hair and said in a very gentle voice, Yuqi, thank you for your consolation. Auntie is very good. I'm not sad at all. Since you don't love me anymore, then be magnanimous and let go. One day you'll understand how Auntie feels. Little Aunt is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Little Aunt, I've missed you so much. Ji Yuqi flattered as if she didn't need money. She shamelessly stayed in Ji Wanhua's arms and could acutely feel her body tense up. Oh, my dear aunt, I won't lose to you in acting again. Just wait and see. Ji Wanhua patted her back to comfort her and said reproachfully, You silly girl, you're not young anymore. Why are you still staying in aunt's arms like a child? Hurry and get up. You're making a fool of yourself in front of Aunt Chen. Chen Tingfang sat at the side. Seeing the harmonious relationship between the aunt and niece, she gritted her teeth in hatred. She was afraid that Ji Wanhua would help Ji Yuqi, but she maintained an elegant smile on her face and teased meaningfully, How would I dare to laugh? Yuqi is our family's princess. All of us have to revolve around her. Ji Wanhua looked deeply at Chen Tingfang and raised the corner of her lips. Sister-in-law, it's been hard on you all these years. Chen Tingfang was rather flattered. Before she married Ji Bowen had said a lot of bad things about her and even stopped Ji Bowen from marrying her. Later, when she married Ji Bowen, Ji Wanhua was still picking on her. She didn't expect that after returning to the country, she would become a different person. The divorce must have been a huge blow to her. Chen Tingfang thought of this and her smile became even brighter. She said modestly, taking care of Bowen and the children is what I should do. It's not hard at all. But you, Wanhua, you're not familiar with the place overseas. You must have suffered a lot. Speaking of this, her face was full of sadness and her eyes were full of concern. She wanted to cry crocodile tears. Ji Wanhua smiled faintly and didn't want to talk about what happened overseas. She subtly changed the topic back to Ji Yuqi and Yi Zhisu. The three of them chatted passionately and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Just then Yi Zhisu came back. She had already heard from Chen Tingfang that Ji Wanhua had returned to the country. But since Ji Wanhua didn't like her in the past, she didn't show much enthusiasm and only greeted her politely. She didn't expect Ji Wanhua to grab her hand and pat it, praising her. Although Yi Zhisu was baffled by the praise, she still maintained an elegant smile and responded politely. After chatting for a while, Ji Wanhua used the excuse that she was too tired and wanted to go upstairs to rest. Ji Yuqi giggled as she held her arm and accompanied her upstairs. The aunt and niece went upstairs happily. Chen Tingfang and Yi Zhisu looked at each other and tacitly got up to go upstairs. Soon, the two of them returned to the master bedroom. Mom, what's up with Ji Wanhua? Why is she acting so weird? Yi Zhisu stroked the back of her hand that Ji Wanhua had touched. She felt a little creeped out. Chen Tingfang carefully recalled Ji Wanhua's attitude towards her. From the airport to home, she didn't pick on her. Her attitude wasn't friendly, but it wasn't distant either. Chen Tingfang was sure that Ji Wanhua had changed. She smiled slightly and answered Yi Zhisu's question. Ji Wanhua wants to please us. Although I don't know why she's doing this, I can tell that she wants to rope us in and doesn't want to be enemies with us. Yi Zhisu's eyes widened. How could that be? She used to hate us so much. She can't be up to something again, right? Chen Tingfang thought for a moment and sneered. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. If she really has some tricks up her sleeve, we don't have to be afraid of her. She's just an abandoned woman with no one backing her up. What's there to be proud of? Yi Zhisu pursed her lips. There was still a hint of worry in her eyes. Mom, we can't underestimate our enemy. Although Ji Wanhua is only Uncle Ji's cousin, I can tell that they're closer than real siblings. If Ji Wanhua badmouths us in front of Uncle Ji, we won't be able to guard against it. Chen Tingfang sneered. She's been badmouthing me in front of Ji Bowen all these years. She has to take responsibility for my relationship with Ji Bowen becoming so distant. However, that's all she can do. Can she still urge Ji Bowen to divorce me? What a joke. Yi Zhisu wanted to say something, but Chen Tingfang interrupted her impatiently. Let's not talk about this anymore. It's the birthday party of the municipal party secretary's daughter, Zhu Zhu, in 2 days. She's also sent an invitation to our family. You have to prepare well. Don't embarrass me. Yi Zhisu rolled her eyes, and a sweet smile appeared on her pretty face. Mom, Ji Yuqi is coming too, right? Of course. She's the real miss of the Ji family. Chen Tingfang smiled strangely. Last time at the courtyard house, Zhu Zhu was used by you to fight with Ji Yuqi. The feud between the two of them is getting deeper and deeper. This time, I invited the two of you to the banquet to mediate the relationship. We can't miss such a good opportunity. The mother and daughter were really telepathic and thought of the same thing. Yi Zhisu also planned to take advantage of Zhu Zhu's birthday banquet to intensify the conflict between her and Ji Yuqi. She wanted them to shed all pretense of cordiality and bite each other to death. Yi Zhisu blinked happily and hugged Chen Tingfang's arm coquettishly. Mom, do you have a plan? Chen Tingfang's smile widened. Her eyes were full of satisfaction. She whispered a few words in her ear. She beamed and said, Mom, you're so awesome. Chen Tingfang and her daughter were plotting how to embarrass Ji Yuqi. Ji Yuqi wasn't idle either. She picked up the invitation from the Zhu family and looked at it. She lowered her eyes and pondered. Some memories from her previous life flooded her mind, and the anger hidden deep in her heart began to stir again. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she slowly opened them and threw the invitation back on the table. Her fingers gently tapped the edge of the table, and her lips suddenly curved into a smile. There were wolves in front and tigers behind. These days were not easy at all. The smile on her pink lips deepened, but there was no smile in her dark eyes. It was so cold that it made people tremble. In the evening, Ji Bowen came back from the company. When he saw Ji Wanhua sitting on the sofa, a faint smile appeared on his cold face. Ji Wanhua went up to him and hugged him with Western etiquette. She smiled and said, "Brother, long time no see." Ji Bowen had already heard about Ji Wanhua's divorce from Ji Qinxian. He patted her shoulder comfortingly and said gently, "Wanhua, how long do you plan to stay this time?" The smile on Ji Wanhua's face dimmed. "I plan to stay in the country for 3 to 5 years. I wonder if brother and sister-in-law will welcome me? You're treating me like an outsider. We're a family. You can stay at home for as long as you want. Go out for a walk and see the mountains and rivers. You'll be more open-minded. If you're bored, you can even come to the company to help me." Ji Bowen's face was gentle and his tone was gentle. He really was an excellent older brother. Ji Wanhua's eyes flashed, and the smile on her lips became more obvious. "Brother, I was just about to discuss this with you. I plan to travel all over China, north and south, to see those scenic places. I've been abroad for so many years, so I don't know much about my own country. It'll be a good way to broaden my horizons." Ji Bowen nodded in agreement. "That's good too. When do you plan to leave? Do you need someone to accompany you? If you need to buy anything, just leave it to the housekeeper." Ji Wanhua chuckled. "I'll leave tomorrow. Since I'm going to relax, of course I'll go alone. I don't need to bring anything. It'll be easier for me to travel light." The siblings talked about traveling. Chen Tingfang, who couldn't get a word in edgewise, was full of question marks. This Ji Wanhua, what the hell was she doing? Traveling? And she wanted to travel all over China? She must be crazy. Ji Yuqi, on the other hand, could somewhat understand Ji Wanhua's thoughts. For more than 10 years, she was bound by her marriage and forced to live in a small world. Now that she was divorced and had cut off the shackles on her body, of course she had to follow her heart and travel around. Not only could she heal the pain of her broken marriage, but she could also broaden her horizons and broaden her horizons. The next day, Ji Wanhua boarded a plane and flew to Tibet, beginning her journey. Meanwhile, the days of the Ji family's turbulent undercurrents continued. On the eve of Zhu Zhu's birthday party, the thing that Ji Yuqi had been waiting for finally happened. Gao Qiao Technology had a financial scandal. According to media reports, Gao Qiao Technology's financial director, Yu Lianshan, had embezzled millions of US dollars by falsifying the company's accounts. More importantly, this executive had also participated in the conspiracy to falsely report Gao Qiao Technology's earnings of more than 300 million. As soon as the scandal broke out, Yu Lianshan was taken away by the relevant departments for investigation. At the same time, because of the financial scandal, the acquisition of Gao Qiao Technology and Wanxing Entertainment was temporarily put on hold. There were even rumors that Gao Qiao Technology had fallen into a financial crisis. Not only did they not have enough funds to buy Wanxing Entertainment, but they had also pushed themselves into a desperate situation. Although Gao Qiao CEO, Yu Lei, came out to refute the rumors in time, he could not stop the shareholders from panicking. Gao Qiao's stock price plummeted, hitting the limit on the day of the market opening. When Chen Tingfang heard the news, her vision turned black and she almost fainted. She had taken out all her private savings to buy Gao Qiao Technology stock. Didn't they say that the situation was good and the stock price would continue to rise? Why did it suddenly hit the limit? It was her first time playing the stock market. She did not understand it before, so she could only call her investment and financial management expert. The expert was calm and assured her not to panic, saying that the stock market was like that. There were ups and downs, And she had to believe that Gao Qiao technology was strong enough to turn the situation around. Even the expert could not comfort her uneasy heart. Chen Tingfang did not sleep well the whole night. She applied a lot of concealer to cover her panda eyes. Yi Zhisu, who was dressed up and ready to go to the party, saw Chen Tingfang's gloomy face and asked worriedly, "Mom, are you not feeling well? You don't look so good." Chen Tingfang did not tell her daughter about buying the stock. At this time, she was full of frustration and could not tell her daughter. She could only force a smile. "It's nothing. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night." Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 832. Auntie Chen, if you're not feeling well, you can stay at home and rest. Mrs. Zhu and Miss Zhu definitely won't blame you. Ji Yuqi was wearing an aqua blue silk dress and an expensive sapphire necklace around her neck. The two complemented each other and made her look like a mermaid swimming in the deep sea. She was beautiful beyond compare. Yi Zhisu jealously glanced at the necklace around her neck. Her smile was warm and gentle. "Sister Chi-Chi, Mom said that she just didn't sleep well. It's all right." Chen Tingfang's gaze also lingered on the necklace for a few seconds. She smiled slightly and said, "As the madam of the Ji family, how can I simply be absent and let the two of you go alone? That will embarrass the host and make our family a joke. Yuqi, I know that you're doing this for my own good, but you have to think about it more thoroughly." Ji Yuqi's charming almond-shaped eyes sparkled. She smiled and said, "Auntie Chen's teachings are right. I'll remember them. But Auntie, you have to pay attention to your makeup too. Don't let others see that you're not looking well." Using a woman's face and age to talk about things was a sure win tactic. Chen Tingfang, who had the upper hand in the argument, instantly changed her expression. She resisted the urge to touch her cheeks. The anger in her heart couldn't be extinguished no matter how hard she tried. Then, she thought about the falling stock price. Anger and anxiety intertwined and burned, tormenting Chen Tingfang until she was mentally and physically exhausted. Her complexion became even worse. When the Ji family's car arrived at the Zhu family's courtyard, Chen Tingfang reluctantly adjusted her state of mind. She elegantly led her two daughters to the Zhu family's residence. The municipal party secretary, Zhu Qiyo, had just taken office this year. He held a banquet in the name of his daughter's birthday in order to build a good relationship with the rich and powerful in Ying City. It would be easier to do things if he had a good relationship with them. If he wanted to achieve something in his position, he had to gain the support of these local tyrants. The Zhu family was also very rich, and the villa they built was exceptionally luxurious. Zhu Qiyo wasn't a child of a poor family. His Zhu family was also a reputable family in the provincial capital. Therefore, there were rumors that Zhu Qiyo came to Ying City for a job. No matter what the rumors were, the rich and powerful families in Ying City had to give him some face. They all brought their wives and children to attend the banquet. Even the eldest young master of the Shen family, who had always disdained such things, came. Zhu Qiyo was very satisfied, but he did not know that Shinja was willing to attend the banquet not because of him, but because of Ji Yuqi. As long as it was an occasion where Ji Yuqi appeared, Shinja did not want to miss it. That was all. When the Ji family arrived, Madame Zhu, Chen Lian, led her daughter to personally welcome them. "Madame Ji, welcome, welcome. These must be your daughters. They are so gentle and virtuous. I can tell at a glance that they are less worrisome than my daughter." Chen Lian was just like Wang Shifeng. Before meeting her, one could hear her voice. When she saw someone, she would smile. She seemed easy to get along with, but the reserved elegance in her bones made it impossible to warm her heart. Zhu Zhu was wearing a red dress today. Coupled with her flamboyant beauty, she was like an azalea flower in full bloom. She was gorgeous but not vulgar. She did not like the Ji sisters because of the conflict in the courtyard last time. However, her parents told her to build a good relationship with the Ji sisters, so she had to let it go. She grabbed Chen Lian's arm and pretended to be coquettish. "Mom, you are too biased. Why did you only praise the two sisters and not me?" Chen Lian could not help but laugh. "You little girl, how old are you? You are still jealous of the Ji sisters. Aren't you ashamed?" In my opinion, a girl should be like Juju. She is more lively to be cute. If I had a daughter, I would definitely raise her to be like Juju. Chen Tingfang was also from a wealthy family, so she could naturally respond appropriately. She smiled gently and did not appear to be flattering or distant. She naturally and kindly praised Juju. Hearing this, Chen Lian's smile spread from her face to her eyes. Who didn't like to hear others praise their children? Ji Yuqi smiled. That's right. I also want to have a handsome and cute sister like Juju. A spoiled and straightforward sister was much cuter than a sister who was gentle on the surface but backstabbing on the back. The smile in Chen Lian's eyes became more obvious. Their municipal party secretary had said that he wanted his daughter to build a good relationship with the Ji sisters, especially with Ji Yuqi, because Ji Bowen loved his daughter very much. Thinking of this, she held Ji Yuqi's hand and patted it gently. She said gently and kindly, "Yuqi, I heard about what happened last time from Juju. There was a misunderstanding between the two of you. Don't be angry. Auntie has already taught her a lesson for you. For Auntie's sake, can you forgive Juju?" It turned out that Chen Lian had such a humble and gentle side. Thinking about how Chen Lian did not give her any face in her previous life and kicked her out of Juju's birthday party, Ji Yuqi's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She curved her lips and a bright smile appeared on her face. "Auntie, you already said that it was a misunderstanding. What is there to forgive? Juju and I are classmates and will be good sisters in the future. You saying that makes me feel ashamed. Okay. Let's not talk about the past." Chen Lian said with a smile. "Juju, take the two sisters for a walk in the garden." Juju's fair cheeks were dyed with an unnatural blush. Although she was arrogant, she was not unreasonable. Since Ji Yuqi was willing to give her a way out, she would naturally follow suit. She took the initiative to smile at Ji Yuqi. "Let's go, Yuqi. Many of our classmates have already arrived. Let's go meet them together." "Okay." Ji Yuqi also smiled in return. The two of them chatted as they walked, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Yi Zixu felt very uncomfortable. She wanted to speak several times, but Ji Yuqi beat her to it and stole Chen Lian's attention. Chen Lian did not even look at her. As for Juju, she did not care about her at all. It was as if she was a gift and her only value was to follow behind Ji Yuqi. This realization made her so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. Her long nails dug into her palms, leaving deep marks. The hatred in her heart grew deeper and deeper. This also made her determined to teach Ji Yuqi a lesson. The Zhu family's garden was very large. The entire design was modeled after Suzhou's gardens. There were artificial mountains and lakes, as well as pavilions and towers. Guests gathered in twos and threes, drinking and chatting. It was very lively. Juju led Ji Yuqi and Yi Zixu to the garden. Under a huge flower rack, there were exquisite wooden tables and chairs. Exquisite pastries, fruits, and all kinds of drinks were freely available. A group of young men and women were laughing and playing here. Before they stepped into the garden, Ji Yuqi saw Jiang Tianhao standing with a few boys and chatting casually. He held a glass of red wine in his hand. He did not feel embarrassed at all because of his inferior birth. He was handsome and confident, and he attracted the attention of many young girls. Lin Yuxi was not with them. Instead, she leaned on the railing alone and watched the goldfish in the lake. She was wearing a white evening gown. The otherworldly white color set off her cold and elegant temperament. She was very beautiful. Ji Yuqi's lips curled, revealing the first sincere smile of the night. Her steps seemed to be lighter. "Ji Yuqi, you're late. Shouldn't you drink a glass of wine as punishment?" The one who spoke was Yi Zixu's die-hard fan, Xiao Ren. He used to bully Ji Yuqi. Although he looked like a rascal, his father was a nouveau riche with assets in the hundreds of millions. "Hee, Goddess Ji, this little one has already poured the wine for you. Don't let us down." A handsome boy with earrings in his ears picked up a glass of red wine and offered it to Ji Yuqi with both hands. This boy was Xiao Ren's good brother. The two of them were so close that they could wear the same pair of pants. They also liked the same woman with the same taste, Yi Zixu. Ji Yuqi chuckled. Just as she was about to take the wine glass, someone beat her to it and took the glass. His handsome face looked even more handsome under the soft light. His warm and smiling voice was as charming as a breeze. You too, bullying a virtuous girl is not the behavior of a gentleman. I'll drink this glass of wine on behalf of Yuchi. After saying that, he raised his beautiful chin and slowly drank the red wine in the glass. Ah, good, Senior Jiang. I didn't expect you to be so gentlemanly. The laughter was full of ridicule. Is a classmate, I'm very curious. How can you tolerate your boyfriend treating other girls? The tone that sounded innocent and curious was full of malice. Jiang Tianhao, although there have always been rumors that you like Ji Yuqi, you don't have to go so far. Have you ever considered Zisu's feelings? Xiaoren was indeed Yi Zisu's die-hard fan. He always wanted to stand up for her. He slammed the table and stood up angrily. Although Ji Yuqi liked watching them fight, she had to say something for the upcoming show. So, her sad eyes fell on Jiang Tianhao, but her tone was indescribably cold. Senior Jiang, Xiaoren is right. I don't need you to care about my affairs. You just need to take good care of Zisu. Two contradictory emotions intertwined in her body. She was obviously very sad, but she tried hard to show a disdainful look. She was so strong and stubborn that people wanted to hold her in their arms and comfort her with good words. Jiang Tianhao's eyes were glued to her body and couldn't move away. Yi Zisu, who had been ignored by him for a long time, clenched her teeth tightly. Otherwise, she was worried that she would roar angrily as soon as she opened her mouth. She pinched her palms hard and walked gracefully to Jiang Tianhao's side. She blocked his line of sight and smiled elegantly at the people who were watching the show. Xiaoren and everyone, you've all misunderstood. I asked Senior Jiang to take care of Sister Qiqi. Sister Qiqi's body is weak and can't drink alcohol. Since I'm late and have to drink a glass as a punishment, then I'll also punish myself with a glass. Yi Zisu's words successfully pulled Jiang Tianhao's attention back to her. Jiang Tianhao actually felt guilty. He was too rash. In order to win Ji Yuqi's favor, he actually neglected Zisu and let her be mocked. He really shouldn't have done that. As for the others, although they had the intention to target Yi Zisu, seeing that she was so natural and graceful to save face, they didn't want to make things difficult for her. Xiaoren's original intention was to embarrass Ji Yuqi, but he didn't expect to shoot his goddess in the foot. He hurriedly said, Zisu, I'll help you drink. A burst of low mocking laughter sounded again. Yi Zisu blushed and glanced at him uncomfortably. Beauty novel, Xinwu 799. There were also a few young masters, such as Gu Fifan and Xinzhi. Gu Fifan was chatting with the two elders and did not notice Ji Yuqi's existence. Xinzhi, who was used to being alone, faintly responded with a few words, then walked to a place with fewer people and looked at Ji Yuqi across the lake. He saw that she had a conflict with Xiaoren and others. Although he was too far away to hear what they were arguing about, he still stared at them attentively. In his dark eyes, there was only her existence. Then he saw her walk towards the girl by the lake and hug the girl from behind. His fingers that were holding the wine cup suddenly tightened, almost shattering it. His heart was filled with a strange emotion. He hated that little girl being close to other people. No matter if it was a man or a woman, he couldn't wait to kill the person that she was close to. Damn it, she belonged to him, he wouldn't allow anyone else to touch her. If looks could kill, Xinzhi would have killed Lin Yuxi 100 times. Although they were far away and Ji Yuqi couldn't see the expression on Xinzhi's face, from his statue-like posture and his unblinking gaze, she could guess that he was in a bad mood. He must not like noisy environments and did not want to deal with others with false civility, so he was in a bad mood. She bit her lip and suddenly wanted to comfort him. Yuqi, although young Master Xin is very handsome, you don't have to look at him in a daze. Lin Yuxi's teasing voice sounded in her ear. Ji Yuqi slowly withdrew her gaze and stared at Lin Yuxi with burning eyes. She asked gossipily, Yuxi, have you ever liked someone else? This question. Lin Yuxi touched her chin with her fingertips and thought very seriously, as if she had asked a very profound question. Jiyuchi saw that her mind was wandering, so she couldn't help but smile. She took out her phone from her handbag, tapped on a familiar name, and quickly sent a text message. Shinja, who was full of murderous intent because of the sudden jealousy, suddenly felt the phone in his trouser pocket vibrate. He didn't want to pay attention to it, but he saw Jiyuchi waving at him from a distance. The murderous intent around him miraculously subsided a little. He took out his phone and saw her text message. "Have some dessert, it can make you feel better." At the end, she attached a big smile, just like her sunny smiling face. His cold and stiff lips couldn't help but curve, but in an instant, they were tightly pressed together. His slender fingers quickly swiped on the phone. "I received a new text message. Stay away from the woman next to you. Don't touch her again. And don't let her touch you." Through this text message, Jiyuchi could feel his strong dissatisfaction. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that Shinja was angry not because there were too many people at the banquet, but because she and Yushi were too close. Was there a mistake? He was jealous of a woman. However, she didn't feel disgusted at all. She felt sweet in her heart, as if she had eaten candy. Yuchi lowered her eyes, pursed her lips and smiled. Her slender fingers danced on the phone screen, and she replied to him with a text message. "Stop fooling around. I'll cook something delicious for you tomorrow." She attached a cute smiley face. Shinja's tightly pursed lips loosened, and his deep pupils rippled with a rippling brilliance. It was as gorgeous as fireworks, but it disappeared in an instant. His cool and handsome face seemed to be shrouded in sunlight, and a momentary warmth slid across it. He raised his head, looked at her deeply, and didn't reply to the text message. His handsome and tall body turned under her gaze, and he walked toward the lively crowd. Jiyuchi was stunned, and she felt inexplicably disappointed. Lin Yushi suddenly threw herself on her shoulder and peeked at her phone. Her voice was full of excitement as she gossiped. "Ah, so that's what happened. I caught you." Jiyuchi's cheeks quickly flushed. She quickly put away her phone, but on second thought, she felt that her 300 tales of silver here behavior was too ridiculous, so she simply admitted it openly. "Yushi, as you can see, Shinja and I are dating." She paused, and her tone was indescribably serious and sincere. "Yushi, my relationship with him can't be made public for the time being. You'll help me keep it a secret, right?" Lin Yushi frowned. "Of course. This miss is not a gossipy person. But my poor cousin, he has fallen out of love again." Jiyuchi thought of how Gu Fifin had been pestering her during this period of time, and she couldn't help but shiver. She quickly said, "Don't tell him. If he finds out, who knows what kind of trouble will happen." In her opinion, Gu Fifin's greatest ability was to provoke women and create trouble. "But don't worry. I promise you that I won't tell anyone, and I definitely won't tell anyone." Lin Yushi lit 3 candles for her poor cousin in her heart. Cousin, it seems that it's impossible for you to snatch someone from young Master Shin." As the night deepened, Jiyuchi and Lin Yushi walked to the hall hand in hand. When the two of them passed by the garden, Lin Yushi was called over by an elder she was familiar with for a chat. Jiyuchi didn't want to stand aside and eavesdrop, so she left first. She walked to the lush flower trees and met a servant. The servant said politely, "Miss Ji, a gentleman asked me to pass a note to you." "It's finally here." Jiyuchi sneered in her heart, but she didn't show it on her face. She took the note and unfolded it. On it was written in a clear and elegant handwriting, "Yuchi, I have a very important matter to discuss with you. 8 o'clock, meet at the rockery behind the forest. Be there or be square. Tinhao." Jiyuchi smiled faintly and crumpled the note into a ball. She pinched it in her palm and looked at the small forest. The unbearable memories of her previous life were awakened again, and her eyes were as cold as ice. At the moment when she was distracted, a slender arm stretched out from behind the big tree, wrapped around her slender waist, and dragged her behind the big tree. He was extremely fast. Before Jiyuchi had time to struggle, she had already smelled the familiar faint fragrance. The man's scalding big palm supported her waist, burning her skin. His warm breath sprayed on her neck, almost burning her. She was tightly imprisoned against his chest. She could clearly feel his heartbeat, passionate and strong. Ji-Yuqi's heart thumped fiercely. She obediently allowed him to hug her. She didn't speak, and he also remained silent. The two of them maintained this extremely intimate position. Finally, she couldn't help but speak. Her clear voice had a trace of coquettishness. "Shinja, why are you hiding here?" Shinja tightened his arms. He was mesmerized by the soft girl in his arms. His thin chin gently rubbed against her raven black hair. His voice was as low as an expensive musical instrument. "I want to hug you." So he hid in the path she had to pass by. Ji-Yuqi's heart trembled. She obviously felt shy, but she couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips. Whether it was in her previous life or this life, he was always clear about his likes and dislikes. If he hated her, he wouldn't even look at her. If he liked her, he would give her to her in the previous world. It was very quiet all around, and no one disturbed them. Ji-Yuqi didn't mind being hugged by him for a while longer, but she still had things to do. Her slender fingers gently patted the back of his hand. She said gently, "Shinja, we've disappeared for too long. It's time to go back." A certain arrogant man buried his head in her shoulder. He said in a muffled voice, "Ignore them." Ji-Yuqi couldn't help but laugh. "Don't be so willful." He could be so cute when he was childish sometimes. Shinja suddenly turned his face and gently kissed her pink cheek. Only then did he curl his lips in satisfaction and let go of the little girl who had been petrified in his arms. He elegantly tidied her clothes and hair, and his voice was full of joy. "Let's go, Chi-Chi." Ji-Yuqi's mouth twitched. This guy really knew how to loot a burning house. Welfare, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 8:34. The two of them came out from behind the tree. Ji-Yuqi walked in front and Shinja was one step behind her. It seemed that there was no relationship between the two of them, but if you looked closely, you would find that the man walking behind was silently accommodating the woman in front of him. If she walked fast, he would take bigger steps. If she walked slowly, he would slow down. The two of them were always one step apart. When they were about to reach the hall, Ji-Yuqi suddenly stopped and turned to look at Shinja. Her face was very calm, and she said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Shinja, I might do something bad later. Can you pretend that you didn't see it?" She had used the tone of a negotiation, but he could hear the pleading in her tone. Displeasure flashed past his heart. She didn't allow him to invade her privacy, and this thought made his chest tighten. He pursed his lips and said indifferently, "I've said it before, I won't interfere." After that, he didn't look at her anymore and walked past her. When he was one step away from her, Ji-Yuqi bit her lip and couldn't help but whisper, "No, I just don't want you to see my ugly side." It was because she cared that she was afraid. She was afraid that he would discover all the ugly things about her. Her voice was very low, so low that Shinja thought he was hallucinating. He paused and a faint light flashed through his beautiful phoenix eyes. The banquet began. Shinja and Zhu Qiu were sitting at the same table, among a group of elders. It was enough to see that Zhu Qiu valued him. Unfortunately, he didn't feel anything and continued to talk to others indifferently. Ji-Yuqi saw that he was silent and guessed that he must be very impatient at this moment. Ji-Yuqi sat at the first table below. This table was full of Zhu Zhu's classmates. Sitting next to her was Lin Yushi, and on the other side was Yi Zisu. Gu Fifan sat opposite her, his elegant peach blossom eyes flirting with her from time to time, completely ignoring the others present. Ji-Yuqi was a little helpless. She didn't know what Zhu Zhu was thinking, arranging this person to sit at the same table as her. Wasn't this deliberately causing trouble? "Yushi, let's change our seats." Gu Fifan didn't know what low-key was. He stared at Ji-Yuqi with a smile, and his intention was obvious. Lin Yushi was expressionless. "Cousin, the banquet has already started. It's not nice to keep changing." Ji-Yuqi lowered her eyes and pretended not to see anything. She felt a gloomy gaze fall on her body. She knew that it was a jealous man staring at her. If she opened her mouth to say something to Gu Fifan, she would definitely die miserably. "Yuchi, this soup is not bad. Try it." A bowl of fragrant chicken soup was placed in front of her. Ji was speechless. She was roaring in her heart, "You are courting me in front of your ex-girlfriend, Zhu. Have you considered our feelings? I'm about to be frozen by Shenji's gaze, bastard." Zhu's eyes flashed with small flames. She was about to flip out, "You bastard. It smells good, but I don't like to drink chicken soup." Ji put the chicken soup aside expressionlessly. "Then try it." Gu Fifan was interrupted by Zhu before he could finish his words. "Gu Fifan, are you done? Do you know that you make people feel disgusted?" Zhu's bright face was full of anger. Although she tried to lower her voice, it still attracted the attention of the guests at the next table. Gu Fifan raised his eyebrows and said lazily, "Miss Zhu, are you jealous?" Although Zhu had broken up with him, she still liked him in her heart. When he poked at her heart, her face turned red and then white, which was very eye-catching. Ji saw that Zhu had not harmed her in her previous life, so she gracefully put down the napkin and looked at Zhu with a smile. She half-jokingly said, "Jealousy is good for the body and mind. I also like to be jealous, but it also depends on whether the dish is to my taste. If it's not to my taste, it's useless to add more vinegar." Zhu was not a fool. She could see that Ji was speaking up for her. Under everyone's gaze, she gave her a way out. She took a deep breath and a bright smile appeared on her delicate face. "Yes, if you don't like the dish, don't try it. Why would you care about adding vinegar? Yuchi, I heard that you are very good at painting. I have also been learning recently. Later, can you give me some advice?" The topic was soon changed. The two women excitedly talked about painting. Gu Fifan was insinuated as unappetizing dish by them. He was very angry, but then he felt funny. He, who had always been invincible, was actually disliked by others. This was a very new experience. Halfway through the meal, Xiao Ren at the same table raised his wine glass and said with a smile, "Students, let's toast to today's birthday girl. We wish her a happy life every year. A woman changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. The more she grows, the more beautiful she becomes." Someone burst into laughter. "Xiao Ren, your toast is really unique. Zhu, I wish you a good mood every day and a beautiful life." The boys and girls present all held their wine glasses and gave their blessings to Zhu, including Gu Fifan, who also said, "Happy birthday." Then everyone cheered and drank the wine in their glasses. Putting aside prejudice, Xiao Ren was indeed a person who was very good at livening up the atmosphere. He waved away the servant who was pouring wine and happily poured wine for his classmates. When it was Gu Fifan's turn, his suit sleeve gently brushed over the wine glass. Something hidden between his fingers was poured into the wine glass with the wine. His movements were extremely fast. Apart from Ji, who had been secretly observing him, no one else could clearly see what he had done. Of course, there was one other person who was well aware of what he had done, and that was Yi Zissou, who had been maintaining an elegant smile all this time. "Brother Fifan, you are a famous person in our school. I have admired you for a long time. Today I must toast to you. Please do me the honor." Xiao Ren's glib smile amused everyone. Gu Fifan raised his eyebrows and did not say much. He gave face and drank the wine in the glass. The banquet was over. Some guests said goodbye to the host, and some stayed to continue the entertainment. Ji excused herself to go to the bathroom and went to a place where there was no one. She took out a small mobile phone from her handbag. Its appearance was not unusual, but the SIM card inside was very special. She asked the computer genius Ahan to copy Yi Zissou's SIM card. As long as she sent a text message with this card, the recipient would mistakenly think that it was sent by Yi Zissou. Ji sent a text message to Xiao Ren in the name of Yi Zissou, asking him to wait for her in the small garden pavilion. She had something important to tell him. Xiao Ren was excited. When he obeyed the goddess's order and put the pill into Gu Fifan's wine, he was in a state of excitement. He was excited and nervous. He was afraid that he would be discovered. His complicated emotions urgently needed to be vented. So when he received the text message, he did not have the slightest doubt and went to the destination in high spirits. At the same time, a servant gave Gu Fifan a small note. Gu Fifan was already half drunk and his mind was not very clear. He saw that the note was written by Yuchi, asking him to meet behind the rockery in the grove. His whole body was like being injected with chicken blood. He excitedly went to the grove. Yi Zissou hid in the crowd and saw that Gu Fifan went to the grove as she expected. But Ji Yuchi stayed by the balcony as usual and chatted with Lin Yushi in a low voice. She did not have the slightest intention of going to the appointment. She could not help but nervously clench her fists. Could it be that Ji Yuchi, that bitch, saw through her plot? With that thought in mind, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. Jiang Tianhao had been by her side the whole time. If he did not go to the grove, Ji Yuchi would definitely think that he would not go to the appointment. Then there was no need for her to go. Damn it, she almost missed the most important thing. Yi Zissou turned to look at Jiang Tianhao, who was by her side, and smiled gently. Tianhao, I want to go to the washroom. Go to the garden and find a hidden place to wait for me. I want to be alone with you. She drew circles on his chest with her finger. When his eyes darkened, she suddenly whispered in his ear, Don't go near Ji Yuchi. Otherwise, I'll be angry. Jiang Tianhao's eyes flickered. He stroked the hair by her ear and smiled gently. Got it, little vinegar jar. I'll wait for you over there. The garden was the path to the grove. If Ji Yuchi saw Jiang Tianhao walking towards the garden, she would definitely think that he was going to the grove. Then Gi Gai would take the bait. Yi Zissou felt that it was wise of her to use Jiang Tianhao's name to ask Ji Yuchi to meet behind the rockery and lure the drunk Gu Fifan there at the same time. She wanted to ruin their reputations. One of them would be accused of seducing someone's boyfriend, and the other of messing around at his ex-girlfriend's birthday party. What a pair of birds of a feather. As soon as Yi Zissou left, Ji Yuchi stopped chatting and looked seriously into Lin Yushi's eyes. Yushi, I have a favor to ask of you. Jiang Tianhao stood in the distance and watched as Ji Yuchi and Lin Yushi whispered to each other. He had an indescribable feeling in his heart. He wanted to go up and talk to her, but Yi Zissou's instructions were still in his ears. He didn't want Zissou to misunderstand, so he could only turn around and leave sullenly. The most hidden place in the garden was the small pavilion by the lake. Hidden among the flourishing flowers, it was quiet and comfortable. It was the best place for couples to date. Jiang Tianhao would obviously choose that place. 1 minute after he left, Ji Yuchi also hurried to the rockery behind the grove. Gu Fifan, who had been schemed against, probably couldn't hold on for long. Behind a pitch-black rockery, Gu Fifan leaned against a tree trunk, his whole body hot and uncomfortable. He held his forehead with one hand and tried to stay awake. He felt that something was wrong with him and wanted to find a woman to vent his anger. A burst of fragrance rushed into his nose, and the sound of footsteps was getting closer and closer. Gu Fifan knew that the person was Ji Yuchi. His heart suddenly beat faster, and his body became even hotter. He stretched out his arm and pulled the little girl who was approaching him in the dark into his arms. Chi-Chi. He eagerly stroked her with both hands and bent down to kiss her cheek. Gu Fifan, calm down. Ji Yuchi angrily slapped his face away. She really wanted to throw this guy who was obsessed with women into the lake to sober up. Chi-Chi, I feel so uncomfortable. Gu Fifan was suffering from the double torture of drugs and alcohol. His mind was muddled, and he didn't have much reason. Relying on his instinct, he tried to get close to a certain soft body. Ji Yuchi wanted to take something out of her handbag, but her hands were entangled by him, so she couldn't move. She gritted her teeth and planned to knock him out. But before she could take action, she heard a plop sound. Gu Fifan softly fell to the ground. A handsome and tall figure stood behind Gu Fifan, and his deep eyes stared straight at her. Welfare, Song Shu 566. Chapter 8:35. Where did he touch you? As soon as Shinja opened his mouth, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped by more than 10 degrees. Ji Yuchi's heart was cold. It's just, my arm really. Ji Yuchi hurriedly proved her innocence. Shinja snorted coldly, his cold gaze circling Gu Fifan a few times, as if he was considering whether to destroy this man's body. Jiuqi coughed dryly, quickly stood between him and Gu Fifan and muttered, "He was schemed against, so he did those things. Fortunately, I was smart and brought a sedative. Although it can't cure the poison in his body, it can help him regain his senses." Jiuqi didn't know why she explained so much. Perhaps she just didn't want Shinja to misunderstand. She quickly took out the sedative from her bag, poured out a few pills, stuffed them into Gu Fifan's mouth, and then slapped his cheek hard. Gu Fifan woke up in a daze, only to feel a pain in the back of his head and face. The heat in his body dissipated a lot, and his mind gradually became clearer. He stared blankly at the woman squatting in front of him, as if he still didn't believe it. He hesitated for a moment and asked, "What happened to me just now?" He remembered that he seemed to have done something bad to her. Jiuqi looked back and saw that Shinja had disappeared. He should be hiding in the dark. She sighed. If Gu Fifan saw him, it might cause some unnecessary trouble. She didn't have time to explain to Gu Fifan. She guessed that Yi Zissou had already brought people to the rockery to catch them in the act. If they were found hiding here, even if they were innocent, there would be unbearable rumors. She pulled him up from the ground and said quickly, "I'll explain this matter to you later. Hurry up and leave here. If you meet anyone on the way, avoid them and then go back to the hall." Jiuqi's soft fingers held his arm. Gu Fifan suddenly froze, and the demon that he had suppressed in his heart began to stir again. He clenched his fingers and tried to restrain himself. His mind was also spinning rapidly, and he realized that something big was about to happen, and it was related to him. He chose to believe in Jiuqi and looked at her deeply. "I owe you for what happened today. It's too dark here, and it's not safe. Don't stay too long." "What? You should leave quickly." Jiuqi urged him to leave quickly. Gu Fifan's back disappeared in the night, and Shinja appeared out of nowhere. His elegant and handsome body stood under the moonlight, aloof from the dust. Jiuqi walked to his side and took the initiative to hold his hand. She lifted her bright and clean little face and smiled brightly. "Shinja, let's go watch the show, okay?" Her soft voice and slightly fawning tone. Was the little girl in front of him worried that he would be angry? Shinja's tensed lips relaxed slightly, and his pitch-black eyes were filled with a hint of a smile. He subconsciously held her hand tightly, and her cold and slender fingertips gently scratched his palm. Her voice was soft. "Don't be angry." She had many things hidden from him. Why did she know that Gu Fifan was being schemed against? Why did she carry tranquilizers with her everywhere? Why did she know that a good show was about to happen? There were so many secrets, and it was no wonder that he would be angry. Jiuqi was perturbed, and she did not know if the secrets she was carrying would cause a misunderstanding between the two of them. And it was impossible for her to tell him about her rebirth. The only thing she could do was to minimize the negative consequences of being a prophet as much as possible. Shenja replied with a faint "Zh," and his broad palm completely covered her little hand. He looked straight ahead and held her hand as they walked forward. Jiuqi frowned. What did he mean by that? Did he agree with what she said and was no longer angry? She stole a glance at him and saw that the corners of his lips were quietly raised. She could not help but smile as well, and her heart was filled with sweetness. Yi Zissou raised her hand and looked at the gold watch on her wrist. It was almost time. Jiuqi and Gu Fifan were like firewood burning with passion. What should have happened had already happened, and she was looking forward to what would happen next. At this moment, Xiaoren was pressing down on his thumping heart as he hid in the small pavilion, waiting for the arrival of the goddess in his dreams. There were no lights in the pavilion, and it was pitch black. In the distance, a faint moonlight shrouded the lake, and the scenery was very beautiful. He imagined himself and Yi Zissou admiring the beautiful scenery under the moonlight. The two of them were together, and they were not separated from each other. Ah, what a beautiful scene! Just as he was immersed in his own fantasy, the sound of crisp footsteps suddenly came from outside the pavilion. The flourishing flowers and trees blocked the figure of the person, but Xiaoren knew that it must be his goddess. He jumped up excitedly and quietly walked to the entrance, planning to give his goddess a surprise when she walked in. Jiang Tianhao wandered around the garden for a while and felt a little tired. He planned to rest in the pavilion while waiting for Yi Zissou. He had just stepped into the dark pavilion when a shadow suddenly appeared out of nowhere and hugged him tightly. Jiang Tianhao trembled. The first thought that came to his mind was that this person was Ji Yuqi. She might have followed him and deliberately waited for him here. However, it seemed that something was not right. A girl's body should be soft, and Yuqi was not so tall. Jiang Tianhao was shocked. He wanted to push the person who hugged him away, but he heard the person's excited and trembling voice. Zissou, you're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Zissou, I've already done as you said and added something to Gu Fifen's wine. Did I do a good job? No one noticed it yet. Xiao Ren finally hugged the goddess of his dreams. Because he was too excited and too nervous, he did not notice that something was wrong at the first moment. Xiao Ren, you idiot! There was a big difference between a man's and a woman's touch. Jiang Tianhao roared in his heart. He wanted to throw the man in front of him into the lake to wake up his brain. However, his reason told him that he had to endure. His body was stiff and he did not dare to move. He wanted to entice the idiot to confess and tell him everything he knew. Xiao Ren did not disappoint. In order to please his goddess, he spilled the beans from a bamboo tube. Zissou, why aren't you saying anything? Are you afraid that Gu Fifen will notice it when he wakes up? Don't worry, if Gu Fifen finds out, I'll take responsibility. I won't drag you down. Jiang Tianhao frowned. A strong sense of uneasiness surged in his heart. Zissou asked Xiao Ren to add something to Gu Fifen's wine. Why did she do that? Xiao Ren saw that his goddess did not say anything. He thought that his goddess was worried about whether the plan would go smoothly. He quickly vowed, Zissou, you don't have to worry. I saw Gu Fifen go to the rockery. He's now drunk and has taken that kind of medicine. He's delirious. He'll definitely do that to Ji Yuqi. That kind of medicine? Ji Yuqi. Jiang Tianhao suddenly realized that Gu Fifen had always been interested in Ji Yuqi. Zissou put the two of them together at this time. Not only would it ruin their reputation, but it would also offend Zhu Zhu. His feelings for Ji Yuqi were a little complicated. He wanted to use her for revenge, but he did not want her to be tainted by other men. Because she was destined to be his woman. Jiang Tianhao was burning with anger. For the first time, he felt anger towards Yi Zissou. She actually hid it from him. She actually had an ambiguous relationship with Xiao Ren, this idiot. She simply did not put him in her eyes. He had fallen from a humble family. He had been looked down upon and bullied a lot. He hated it when people ignored his existence. At this moment his anger towards Yi Zissou increased rapidly. He also hated Xiao Ren, this idiot. He could no longer endure it. He suddenly stretched out his arm and pushed Xiao Ren away. He was very strong, and Xiao Ren was pushed back a few steps. Xiao Ren was surprised that his goddess was so strong. He threw himself at her again and shouted, Zissou, I have liked you for a long time. Jiang Tianhao, that poor boy, is not worthy of you. Be with me. I will definitely love you and make you the happiest girl in the world. Damn it, he was almost pushed to the ground by this idiot. In the darkness, Jiang Tianhao's handsome face was distorted by anger. His anger had clouded his reason. He could not help but put his hand on Xiao Ren's neck. If he used more strength, he could break his neck. On the other side, Yi Zissou, who was in the hall, claimed that she had lost her earrings. She wanted to go to the place where she had just passed by to look for them. Although Zhu Zhu did not like her, as the host, she could not neglect her guest. So she called a few servants and classmates who were close to her to help her look for the earrings. Lin Yuxi also followed. The group of people held flashlights and walked towards the dark garden. Yi Zissou walked at the front, wanting to lead the group to the back of the rockery as soon as possible. Suddenly, she heard Lin Yuxi's surprised voice. Wait a minute, did you guys hear any strange sounds? Zhu Zhu and the others stopped. There's no sound. Yi Zissou was afraid that Lin Yuxi would stall for time, so she quickly said, There's no sound. I didn't stay here today. The earrings should have fallen in the woods. Let's hurry over and take a look. Lin Yuxi's face was serious and her tone was firm. I really heard a sound. It sounded like a scream, but it also sounded like a very painful sound. "It's over at the pavilion. You guys wait here. I'll go and take a look. It won't be good if something happens." As soon as she finished speaking, she immediately rushed towards the pavilion. Of course, Juju couldn't let her go alone. It was dark, and she was a girl. Does something happen? Juju glanced at Yizisu and said, "Let's go and take a look. Anyway, we're not in a hurry to find the earrings." As they spoke, Lin Yushi had already passed through the flourishing flowers and stepped onto the steps of the pavilion. In a flash, Yizisu suddenly remembered something. Jiang Tianhao was in the pavilion. Did something really happen to him? In this season, there were already poisonous snakes. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. She didn't care about her manners. With one hand holding the hem of her dress, she quickly walked towards the pavilion. Ah! A sharp scream pierced through the night sky, startling the adults in the hall. They thought that something had happened to their child and rushed to the garden. In front of the pavilion in the dark, Lin Yushi froze on the spot. She covered her mouth in shock. The flashlight in her hand had already rolled to the ground, and the dazzling light shone on the two men who were rolling in the room. "What's wrong? What happened?" Yizisu was the most anxious. She was the first to run behind Lin Yushi. She swept the flashlight into the room and then screamed. Screams came one after another. The entrance was crowded with people. Beauty novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 8:36. The flashlights in their hands shone neatly on the floor. Two men were lying on the floor, their clothes disheveled. One of them was on top of the other, their limbs intertwined. It looked like they were fighting, but it also looked like they were having sex. The two of them heard the screams and looked up at the entrance in panic. However, the glaring light made it difficult for them to look straight at it, so they had no choice but to quickly avoid it. Yizisu looked at the scene in front of her in shock. What was going on? Why was Tianhao and Xiaoren entangled together? Perhaps it was because the incident happened too suddenly, but Jiang Tianhao and Xiaoren did not let go of each other immediately. They only let go of each other in panic when the entrance was filled with people. Jiang Tianhao quickly got up from Xiaoren's body. Just as he was about to explain, he was interrupted by Lin Yushi's trembling voice. "How could you do such a thing? Senior Jiang, you're Yizisu's boyfriend. And Xiaoren, don't you like Yizisu? How could you and Senior Jiang?" Jiang Tianhao almost spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. He and Xiaoren were fighting. Why did it sound like they were doing something shameful when Lin Yushi said it? Damn it. Xiaoren quickly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. It was from Jiang Tianhao's beating. He quickly explained, "You misunderstood." Yizisu was worried that Xiaoren would say something he shouldn't say. She quickly interrupted him and said, "Tianhao, Xiaoren, how could you fight in a place like this? If there's a misunderstanding, just talk it out and solve it." Lin Yushi shook her head. Her tone was sympathetic and pitiful. He bit his lip until it bled. "How pitiful? Xiaoren, you don't have to explain. We all understand. Don't worry, we won't say anything." After her reminder, everyone looked at Xiaoren and his wife with even more ambiguous gazes. They even took the scars on their bodies from the fight as evidence of excessive love. Xiaoren was so angry that he rolled his eyes. What was this? He still wanted to refute, but Jiang Tianhao suddenly punched him in the face and said angrily, "Xiaoren, this is the lesson you deserve for coveting Zisu. If you harass her again in the future, I won't let you off." F***CK, Jiang Tianhao, haven't you had enough? Let's continue. The hot-blooded young man, Xiaoren, was provoked by him. He forgot where he was and raised his fist to fight. A low, angry voice exploded in the air. "Ren, stop." Xiaoren embarrassedly withdrew his fist and turned his head stiffly. "Dad." Oh no, he had lost a lot of face today. When he went home, he would definitely be tied up and beaten by his old man. Xiao Qinggang was so embarrassed by his good-for-nothing son that his face turned red. His two chins trembled in anger. The people around them pretended not to see anything. Some disappeared, while others remained silent. However, one person did not give them face. He sneered and said in a lazy tone, "Wow, So you have this kind of hobby. I understand. Originally, the parties involved had explained that it was a fight, but someone still twisted the facts and misled everyone. It was really well done. Lin Yushi looked at Gu Fifan, her cousin, with admiration in her eyes. Gu Fifan! Xiaoren exclaimed in shock. Jiang Tianhao was also stunned. Yi Zhisu almost couldn't help but fly into a rage. What was going on? Gu Fifan should be doing something embarrassing with Ji Yuqi now. How could he appear here? Oh, she was going crazy. What exactly did she miss? Gu Fifan crossed his arms and slowly approached Xiaoren with a relaxed and lazy look. Just now, he followed Ji Yuqi's advice and quickly returned to the hall. Unexpectedly, he met Yi Zhisu and others on the way. He simply hid behind a tree and rested. He planned to go back after the effect of the drug in his body disappeared. He didn't expect to see such an interesting scene. He was not stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart. Based on some clues, he basically guessed that he had been schemed against. He also knew that the people who schemed against him were probably Xiaoren and Yi Zhisu. Of course, they didn't only scheme against him. They also schemed against Ji Yuqi, who had a special relationship with him. As for why Xiaoren and Jiang Tianhao were schemed against, it should be Ji Yuqi's credit. Thinking of this, Gu Fifan glanced in the direction of the entrance. She, who was wearing a blue dress, stood expressionlessly behind the crowd. Beside her was Xinzhe, who was wearing a black suit. Although the two of them didn't have any communication, they inexplicably made people feel that they were a good match. Gu Fifan's heart was slightly depressed. He turned his gaze away and didn't think about it anymore. He patted Xiaoren's shoulder intimately and smiled very kindly. He whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Little brother Xiaoren, big brother is really grateful for that glass of wine." Xiaoren's whole body trembled. He stared straight at the smiling man in front of him. His back suddenly broke out in cold sweat. His heart was filled with coldness. Damn it, Gu Fifan knew. He knew that he had drugged his wine. He definitely wouldn't let him go. Xiaoren had seen Gu Fifan's strength. Anyone who offended him would not have a good ending. Under his gaze, Xiaoren's heart trembled. He clenched his fists tightly. His lips trembled a few times, but in the end he didn't say anything. He chose to protect Yi Zhisu. He forcefully closed his eyes and then opened them again. He forced a calm expression and smiled. "Brother Fifan, please give me some face." Xiaoren was pleading with Gu Fifan. Even if he wanted to take revenge, he shouldn't make things too ugly for him. Most of the influential people in Ying City were gathered here. If they knew about his despicable actions, the reputation of the entire Xiao family would be ruined. The smile on Gu Fifan's face became even brighter. That handsome face was as beautiful as the peach blossoms in March. It was mesmerizing. However, at this moment, Xiaoren was frightened. He was trembling with fear as he waited for Gu Fifan's verdict. He even ignored the current situation. "Ern, why are you still standing there? Hurry up and get your ass over here. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough?" Xiao Xinggong's furious voice sounded like the sound of nature in Xiaoren's ears. He hurriedly threw a pleading look at Gu Fifan. Then, as if he was being chased by a monster, he dashed to his father's side. Then, the nouveau riche Xiao Xinggang gave him a slap without hesitation. The crisp sound of the slap brought the Zhu family's banquet to an unhappy end. Xiao Qinggang stuffed his little brat into the car and left in a huff. Ji Bowen was discussing with Zhu Qiyo and a few other family heads about investing in education. He didn't make it to the scene of the farce in time, but he still heard about the general situation. When he saw Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zhisu again, his gloomy eyes hid his anger. He took a deep look at Jiang Tianhao and said in a low voice, "Look at the trouble you've caused." After he finished speaking, he stormed off in a huff. Chen Tingfang glared at Yi Zhisu in exasperation. She hurriedly followed after Ji Bowen and gently consoled him. Ji Yuqi looked at Jiang Tianhao as if she wanted to say something. Her dark eyes flashed with worry and concern. She seemed to have a lot to say, but she didn't know where to start. Finally, she bit her lips and whispered, "Take care." Then she carried her handbag and walked straight past him. Her delicate body looked even more delicate in the night. Jiang Tianhao's heart ached. He suddenly realized that at this time, the only person who was really worried about him and really cared about him was probably Ji Yuqi. If Ji Yuqi knew what he was thinking at this time, would she laugh 3 times and scold the heavens for being blind? Tianhao. A soft voice entered his ears. A small white hand tentatively held his hand. Yi Zisu's worried face entered his line of sight. Her red lips moved slightly and she whispered, Tianhao, don't worry. I believe in you. Everything will be fine. Seeing her beautiful face and listening to her soft voice, Jiang Tianhao no longer felt happy. Only disgust was left. It was this woman who was stupid and vicious. She actually used him to deal with Yuqi. In the end, she was schemed against by Gu Fifan and poured dirty water on him. Yes, Jiang Tianhao didn't suspect Ji Yuqi, who loved him deeply. He only thought that Gu Fifan saw through his plot and beat him at his own game. He brought everyone here to embarrass himself. Jiang Tianhao really wanted to shake her hand off, but he didn't. This woman was still useful to him. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he didn't show it on his face. He squeezed her hand. Let's go. On the way back, the Ji family split into 3 groups. Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang left first. Ji Yuqi drove one car, Yi Zisu and Jiang Tianhao drove the other. Ji Yuqi drove the car and shuttled back and forth between the traffic. The neon lights outside the window kept flashing and the car was filled with melancholy, nostalgic music. Her thoughts drifted and she couldn't help but return to the past. That night, she went to Zhu Zhu's birthday party with Yi Zisu. Yi Zisu was an elegant and noble princess who was in the limelight, but she was a notorious vicious woman. Fortunately, her Prince Charming, Jiang Tianhao, was always by her side. When she was playing in the garden, Ji Yuqi also received a small note like today, asking her to meet at the rockery behind the grove. The note was signed by Tang Feng. Even if she was abandoned by Tang Feng, Ji Yuqi never hated him, let alone suspected him. Therefore, she hid it from Jiang Tianhao and quietly went to the appointment. It was dark behind the rockery. When she approached, an arm suddenly stretched out and dragged her to the back of the rockery. That person was Gu Fifan, who was drugged. Gu Fifan pressed her against the stone. He tore off her clothes and carelessly kissed and stroked her. She struggled in panic. Just when she was about to despair, a group of people suddenly appeared in front of her. Her clothes were untidy and she was in a mess. She wanted to explain, but no one believed her. Tang Feng said bluntly that he did not give her any note. The other party, Gu Fifan, drank too much and fainted, so no one defended her. Everyone scolded her for stealing Zhu Zhu's boyfriend. Zhu Zhu slapped her. Mrs. Zhu was angry and kicked her out of the party without caring about the Ji family's face. Only Jiang Tianhao trusted her and left with her. From then on, Ji Yuqi was dead set on Jiang Tianhao. She loved him so much that she wanted to marry no one but him. Of course, even if she wanted to marry someone else, no one would want to marry a woman with a bad reputation. From then on, Ji Bowen was completely disappointed with her daughter. At that time, An had died in an accident. Ji Bowen could only put his hope on his future son-in-law, Jiang Tianhao. He let him enter the Ji group and familiarize himself with the company's business. He taught him step by step, so he personally cultivated an ingrate. In the end, he took away the power of the Ji group. Welfare, Xinwu 799. Chapter 837. It could be said that Jiang Tianhao's road to power was paved with Ji Yuqi's humiliation and sadness. The sad thing was that Ji Yuqi had never doubted him and Yi Zisu. She had always foolishly thought that it was because of her bad luck that she encountered so many bad things. Thinking of how stupid she used to be, Ji Yuqi wanted to slap herself a few times. Ji Yuqi gripped the steering wheel tightly and her eyes gradually turned cold. She realized that some things had changed because of her rebirth. In her previous life, Tang Feng was used as a shield by Yi Zisu. This time, Tang Feng didn't attend the banquet because he wasn't feeling well. So, Yi Zisu took the risk and asked her out in Jiang Tianhao's name. Unfortunately, Jiang Tianhao had some feelings for Yuqi in this life. Yi Zisu was worried that Jiang Tianhao wouldn't hurt Yuqi, so she could only do things behind his back. If he found out that Yi Zisu's plot ended up harming himself, there would definitely be a rift between the two of them. It wasn't because he cared about Yuchi, but because he was used to controlling the situation and wouldn't allow others to deceive him. Thinking of this, Jiyuchi raised her eyebrows mockingly. Let this pair of true love test their feelings with time. Her phone suddenly rang, interrupting her reverie. Jiyuchi pressed the answer button and heard Gu Fifin's magnetic voice. Chichi, can you explain what happened tonight now? Jiyuchi's tone was indifferent, as if she was talking about the weather. You were drugged by Xiao Ren and tricked to hide behind the rockery. I was already prepared and saved your reputation. Oh, right, although you don't have any reputation to speak of. Gu Fifin smiled bitterly. Do you have to humiliate me like this to be happy? Forget it, since you saved what little reputation I had left, I'll forgive you. Tell me, how did you get Xiao Ren and Jiang Tianhao together? I used Yi Zisu's name to trick Xiao Ren into going to the pavilion. As for Jiang Tianhao, he was rather unlucky. In order to trick me, Yi Zisu had to send him away, and the best place to do so was the only way to get to the fake mountain, the garden. Ji Yuqi analyzed the situation in detail. She did not intend to hide anything from him. In some ways, the two of them were really fated. In her previous life, Yi Zisu had schemed against them, and both of them were unlucky together. In this life, they were schemed against again. This was also the reason why Jiyuchi was so kind to save him from his burning desire. Gu Fifin clicked his tongue and sighed. So you're playing psychological tactics. You're really good. Jiyuchi snorted. Thanks for the compliment, Mr. Gu. I beg you to use your brain when you do things in the future. Don't be used by others. I don't want to be involved with you anymore. Why did Yi Zisu always want to involve her and Gu Fifin together? This was really a question worth pondering. The corner of Gu Fifin's mouth twitched. Hey, you're kicking me to the curb after I've outlived my usefulness. Last time at the old mansion, you were the one who wanted to get involved with me. Why are you blaming me now? Jiyuchi apologized without any sincerity. Then I'm really sorry. Gu Fifin was almost angered to death by her. The next second, he was full of energy again and chuckled mischievously. Chi-Chi, since they all want to involve us together, then we'll do what everyone wants and be together. Don't worry, I won't despise you. Sorry, I despise you. Jiyuchi raised her eyebrows. She got out of the car and closed the door. She didn't want to have a meaningless conversation with him. That's it, I'm home. Bye. Wait a minute. Ouch, ouch, little rascal, you actually dare to hang up on me. On the other side, Gu Fifin pounded the steering wheel in annoyance. Unfortunately, the little girl could no longer hear him. After the incident at the birthday party, the news of Xiao family's young master being a pervert quickly spread. Xiao Qinggang was ridiculed by the group of people on the board of directors. He lost all his face. When he went back, he gave Xiao Ren a good beating. Poor Xiao Ren, his old injuries had not healed and new injuries were added. At this moment of physical and mental injury, Xiao Ren wanted to seek comfort from the goddess. He didn't expect the goddess to coldly tell him that she had never asked him to go to any pavilion and had never liked him. She asked him not to misunderstand. Xiao Ren's young man's heart suddenly shattered into pieces. The sad thing was that Gu Fifin started to take revenge. The news that Xiao Ren and Jiang Tianhao messed around at Zhu Zhu's birthday party spread throughout the school. There was a post on the BBS called, "Who is the top and who is the bottom? The Tsundra Queen and the Black-Bellied Emperor?" The post quickly became popular. In the post, Xiao Ren became the Tsundra Queen, and Jiang Tianhao was naturally the Black-Bellied Emperor. The post owner made a detailed analysis of the attributes of the two people's top and bottom. His moral integrity fell to the ground, which attracted the howling of the Fujoshis. They all raised their flags and supported Xiao Ren and Jiang Tianhao to be together. The two men who were gossiped about smashed the mouse at the same time and almost overturned the computer. Ouch, 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 look, that is the Black-Bellied Emperor. He is so handsome and stylish. His gentle appearance wraps his black-bellied heart. Ouch, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to faint. A girl's eyes were starry and she looked infatuated. What the hell? Who is the woman holding the black-bellied emperor's arm? It destroys the beauty too much. The black-bellied emperor belongs to the Tsundere queen. A girl stomped her feet and roared at Yizisu. The Tsundere queen and the black-bellied emperor are true love. The one called Yi something quickly let go of the Tsundere queen and let the Tsundere queen do it. Tsundere queen, where are you? Your man is about to be snatched away. Whenever Jiang Tianhao and Yi Zisa held hands and showed their affection on campus, they would be surrounded by a group of fujoshis. The chatter of the wolf girls annoyed Jiang Tianhao, and Yi Zisa's face became more and more ugly. Both of them were roaring in their hearts. Fujoshis are really a ferocious species. He is obviously heterosexual, okay? This farce finally came to an end one afternoon. Under the covetous eyes of the wolf girls, Jiang Tianhao and Xiaoren walked into the office of the Academic Affairs Office. The Academic Affairs Director expelled them for violating the school rules and seriously affecting the school's teaching order, living order, and public management order. Jiang Tianhao's face was as white as a sheet. He was already in his 4th year of university. If he was expelled, it would mean that he had wasted his 4 years in university. Moreover, those big companies would not hire a student who was expelled because of his bad behavior. This meant that his whole life would be stained. He tried to suppress the anger in his heart, clenched his fists tightly, stood up suddenly, and argued with reason, "Director, I have an objection to this punishment. I want to appeal." Xiaoren also stood up and said loudly, "I want to appeal too." According to the rules, if a student was not satisfied with the punishment given by the school, he could appeal. The school set up a special student appeal handling committee to accept students' appeals for cancellation of admission, expulsion, or disciplinary punishment. The director pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose and smiled. "Okay, students, please submit a written appeal to the appeal handling committee according to the rules." Coming out of the Academic Affairs Office, the two people, who were like fire and water, miraculously reached a tacit agreement. They must unite and overturn the school's punishment decision. Jiang Tianhao took the lead and reached out a hand of friendship. "Xiaoren, let's put aside our prejudice and work hard together." Xiaoren hesitated for a moment and held Jiang Tianhao's hand. "I was too immature in the past. Jiang Tianhao, I will not fight with you for Yi Zisu in the future. You must treat her well." Even if his goddess did not mean it, he still could not bear to see her suffer. Jiang Tianhao nodded, his face was cold and his eyes were deep. No one could guess what he was thinking. Originally, it was a simple handshake between two men. Unexpectedly, someone secretly took a picture of it and posted it on the school's website. The wolf girls cheered. The Tsundere queen and the black-bellied king finally broke through the world and got together. Someone edited the picture of the two, made it into a video, and posted it on the internet. It implicated their background and attracted more attention. It even implicated the Xiao group and Ji group. The matter was getting bigger and bigger, and it was developing in an uncontrollable direction. "Tianhao, don't take those people's nonsense to heart. You will be fine. Tianhao, don't worry. No matter what, I will always be on your side. Tianhao, I have saved a secret stash of money over the years. If we can't stay in Ying City, we will study abroad. Everything will be fine." Yi Zisu seized every opportunity to show her loyalty in front of Jiang Tianhao. Jiang Tianhao was not touched at all. He only became more and more annoyed. This woman was the main culprit. She caused him to be so miserable. She still had the nerve to comfort him and give him charity. When a person loves you, all your shortcomings become merits. When a person doesn't love you, he can no longer see your merits and will only magnify your shortcomings. Jiang Tianhao and Xiaoren had to bear the pressure of Mount Tai and submit a petition to the Complaint Handling Committee. However, they did not know that Gu Fifen's grandfather was the director of the school. It was a piece of cake for him to target anyone. The complaint was rejected and the original punishment was upheld. Jiang Tianhao and Xiaoren were not satisfied. In the end, they submitted a written complaint to the Provincial Education Administration. This incident caused a huge uproar in Ying City. The Provincial Education Administration sent 2 investigators to investigate and collect evidence. This time, Gu Fifan did not do anything behind the scenes. Hence, after several twists and turns, the investigators finally found the truth. They proved that Jiang Tianhao and Xiao Ren were innocent. The public was blinded by malicious rumors. In the end, the education department overruled the decision to expel them from school. The school reconsidered the matter and gave them a warning. However, Jiang Tianhao and Xiao Ren's names were remembered by everyone in Ying City. Regardless of whether it was out of goodwill or malice, their reputations were tainted. As Jiang Tianhao's future father-in-law, Ji Bowen lost all his face. His attitude towards Jiang Tianhao became colder and colder. Chen Tingfang originally wanted to persuade Ji Bowen to let Jiang Tianhao enter the Ji group after graduation. However, she had no choice but to give up on this idea. She also tried to persuade Yi Zhisu to give up on Jiang Tianhao and find another outstanding man. However, Yi Zhisu was too addicted. She was unwilling to give up. She kept fantasizing that she would stay by his side when he was down and that he would not abandon her when he was successful. He would be loyal to her and so on. A month later, the expulsion incident finally came to an end. Jiang Tianhao went from being a proud young man of the capital university to a commoner who was despised by everyone. Everyone looked at him with prejudice. Although he was already in his 4th year and did not care about the reputation in the school, the difference was too big. He could not accept it. Beauty novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 8:38. The sun was setting in the west, and a golden color spread across the clear lake, sparkling and crystalline. On the lakeside, a tall and straight figure was leaning against a willow tree. The setting sun shrouded his body in a faint golden halo, making his handsome face look like fine jade. Between his handsome eyebrows, there was a faint trace of worry. The melancholic prince, compared to the gentle as jade big brother next door, was more able to evoke the feelings of pity from the bottom of a girl's heart. When Ji Yuqi coincidentally met Jiang Tianhao by the lakeside, what she saw was such a beautiful scene. She knew that he was creating an opportunity for them to meet, so she cooperated and gave him such an opportunity. Senior. Her beautiful eyes were filled with emotion, silently gazing at his face, as if she was worried, as if she was distressed. But in her heart, she was thinking, "Oh, scumbag, seeing you so depressed and down, I'm relieved." Yuqi. Jiang Tianhao's heart trembled, and he couldn't help but walk closer to her. Regarding the current him who was down and out, only Yuqi truly cared about him. He completely forgot that Yi Zhisu was by his side every day, comforting him and comforting him. "Senior, you've lost weight." Ji Yuqi cooperatively walked forward, meeting him halfway. The two of them quietly looked at each other, seeing the deep affection and pain in each other's eyes. Oh, Ji Yuqi was about to cry from her own nauseating performance. "Yuqi, right now only you care about me." Jiang Tianhao bitterly smiled as he held her hand, wanting to pull her into his embrace. Ji Yuqi unobtrusively took 2 steps back from his embrace. She wanted to smile at him, but when that smile was revealed, it was incomparably miserable. Her beautiful eyes were covered with mist, and her lips were white from biting as she softly said, "We can't do this, senior. You are my brother-in-law, we can't let Zhisu down. But the one I love is you." Jiang Tianhao's voice was hoarse, as he suppressed his low roar. After he roared out, he was shocked. It turned out that he had really fallen in love with her. Unknowingly, he actually roared out the words hidden in his heart. He had finally admitted that he loved her. He had fallen in love with the daughter of his father's murderer. Ji Yuqi really wanted to laugh out loud. What she had been begging for in her previous life, she had actually gotten it so easily in this life. The heavens were really teasing people. She had a stunned expression on her face as if she couldn't believe it. In the end, she shook her head weakly and sobbed, "No, what we're doing is wrong." She suddenly grabbed Jiang Tianhao's wrist and pleaded agitatedly, "Senior, I'm begging you. Don't tell Zhisu. Don't hurt her. She's my only sister." Before she could finish speaking, tears had already rolled down her cheeks, making her look sad and beautiful. At this moment, Jiang Tianhao only felt heartache and shame. He and Yi Zhisu had done many things to let Yuqi down. He didn't expect Yuqi to be so kind. She actually didn't bear a grudge against Zhisu and even asked him to treat her well. At the same time, he hated Yi Zhisu even more. It was because of Yi Zhisu's viciousness that he had been separated from Yuqi. If Yi Zhisu was no longer around, he and Yuqi could be together. No, he couldn't think like that. After all, Yi Zhisu was his first woman. Ji Yuqi saw Jiang Tianhao's constantly changing expressions and the undercurrent in his eyes. She could guess what he was thinking. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. What you can't have is the best. See, true love is nothing more than that. She gathered her thoughts and took out a document from her handbag and handed it to him. Her long eyelashes were still tear-stained as she said softly, "Senior, this is the information I've compiled on some companies. These companies have some connections with our G family. If you're willing to work in these companies, I'll ask Dad to recommend you." The information was very detailed. It included the introduction of the company's main business, the company's organizational structure, the main people in charge, and even the preference of the people in charge. It was obvious that she had put in a lot of effort. This was no different from sending charcoal in snowy weather to Jiang Tianhao. He was deeply moved. He firmly believed that Ji Yuqi loved him deeply. As long as Yuqi was willing to speak up for him in front of Ji Bowen, he would still find a good job and then scheme. He clenched the information in his hands and gazed affectionately into Ji Yuqi's eyes. He looked deeply moved. "Yuqi, you've treated me so well. Yuqi, give me 2 years. I'll marry you grandly." Ji Yuqi's pretty face blushed. Her eyelashes fluttered a few times. She turned her face away, not daring to look at him. She mumbled, "We've agreed. You can't let Zhisu down. I'll leave first." Her cheeks were flushed red. It was as if she was being chased by a monster. She ran away in a panic, leaving only her fragrant scent in the air. Jiang Tianhao looked at her flustered back. The corners of his lips curled up, and his bright black eyes sparkled with satisfaction. "Yuqi, I won't let go. Even if you're the daughter of my enemy, I won't let go. I'll defeat your father and then marry you. I'll let your father's life go for your sake. We'll definitely be happy." Fortunately, Ji Yuqi didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, she would have been angered to death by his strange logic. After running to a place where Jiang Tianhao couldn't see, Ji Yuqi slowed down her pace and walked slowly to the parking lot. She had calculated that Jiang Tianhao wouldn't give up such a good opportunity. Unfortunately, what he didn't know was that she had a certain amount of connections in those companies. No matter which company he chose, he wouldn't have a good life. Chen Tingfang couldn't sit still anymore. She thought that after a month, Gao Qiao Technologies' financial problems would be solved and the stock price would rise. Unexpectedly, Gao Qiao Technologies' stock price fell faster than a parachute. When she bought it, it was more than 50 yuan. Now it had fallen to 950 yuan. If it fell any further, her 2 million yuan would only be left with a few 100,000 yuan. She was so anxious that she had a meeting with the financial planner. The financial planner comforted her and asked her to wait a little longer. Wait a little longer. If she waited a little longer, her 2 million yuan would only be left with a few 100,000 yuan. Chen Tingfang shook off the financial planner and called Lin Tai directly. She was so anxious that she couldn't be bothered to exchange pleasantries. She went straight to the point and asked, "Lin Tai, Gao Qiao Technologies' stock price has fallen a lot. What do you plan to do?" Lin Tai didn't react for a moment. "The stock price fell? What does it have to do with me?" Chen Tingfang forced herself to be patient. "Didn't you buy Gao Qiao Technologies stock? Now their stock price has fallen a lot. I'm just asking if you've heard any news from Qingli. Are you going to sell it or continue to hold it?" Lin Tai had a sudden realization and shouted, "You bought Gao Qiao Technologies stock?" Chen Tingfang frowned. "Yes." Lin Tai said anxiously, "You're really making me anxious. Didn't you say that you weren't interested in investing in stocks? I thought you wouldn't buy it, so I didn't inform you. Actually, Qingli told me later that although the Yu family is very powerful, there are internal conflicts in their family. Gao Qiao Technology might be in trouble. Look, The financial director who exposed the financial scandal is Yu Lei's uncle. Chen Tingfang's mind was about to explode. She couldn't hear what Lin Tai said at the end. She knew that she was in trouble this time. Gao Qiao Technology's stock price would fall even more. She had to make a prompt decision to sell it quickly. Otherwise, the losses would be even worse. As if to verify her guess, the news suddenly broke out. It said that Gao Qiao Technology's employees had said that the company was indeed in a financial crisis. Their main business was showing signs of losses. If they couldn't repay the bank loan, the bank would use a few of the company's factories to repay the debt. In short, all the signs indicated that Gao Qiao Technology was galloping on the road to bankruptcy. When she saw the news on the big screen in the square, Chen Tingfang was so anxious that she almost fainted. A pair of slender and fair hands supported her firmly, and a clear and pleasant voice flowed past her ears like a gurgling stream. "Madam, are you all right?" Chen Tingfang leaned against a broad and firm chest. That person's strong arms supported her waist. She took a deep breath and slowly opened her eyes. She turned her head and looked at that person. With just one glance, she was stunned. It was a very handsome face. Handsome eyebrows, a high nose bridge, and a caring and warm smile on his young face. It was like a ray of sunlight that shone into the depths of one's heart. His eyes were very beautiful. They were clear, bright, and sparkled with a pure smile without a trace of haze. His entire being was like a radiant object, attracting the gazes of others. His casual suit made his figure tall and straight. His young body was full of vitality, but it didn't make people feel that he was childish. This man was very charming. This sentence suddenly popped up in Chen Tingfang's mind. For no reason, she suddenly felt ashamed of herself for having such thoughts. Her cheeks heated up and she hurriedly withdrew from his embrace. She brushed the hair by her ear as if to cover it up and smiled slightly. "Thank you, I'm fine." "That's good. My name is Xiao Yihan. Nice to meet you." Xiao Yihan smiled brightly and politely extended his right arm. Chen Tingfang politely shook his right hand. "My surname is Chen. Thank you for today. I still have something to do. See you next time." "Okay. Goodbye, Sister Chen." Xiao Yihan waved his hand coolly. His handsome face looked like a god under the sunlight. Seeing the handsome man's back disappear into the distance, Chen Tingfang couldn't help but sigh. It was so good to be young, full of passion and vitality. After getting into the car, she immediately contacted the financial planner and instructed him to sell all of Gao Qiao's shares. The financial planner persuaded her again and asked her to wait patiently for a few more days. Chen Tingfang was really impatient. She flipped out and said, "Please do as I say. No matter what the consequences are, I will bear them myself. I will not trouble you." Actually, the financial planner was waiting for these words. Those unreasonable rich ladies were the scariest. It was fine if they earned money, but as long as they lost money, they would push the blame to the financial planner. Chen Tingfang sold all of her shares. It was as if her heart had been gouged out. She was in so much pain that she couldn't tell anyone about it. Attention, Honghe 866. Chapter 839. However, as she expected, the stock price continued to fall. When it fell to more than 5 yuan, Chen Tingfang's anger dissipated a little. She felt lucky that she didn't continue to hold shares. While most people were frantically dumping their Gaoqiao stocks, one person was frantically buying them. She was Ji Yuqi. After Grandpa Su Zhenghang passed away, he left a legacy to Ji Yuqi and her brother, which was managed by Ji Bowen. When they turned 18 years old, they could freely use it. Ji Yuqi had already obtained the right to freely use the legacy. She registered a company abroad and used the legacy to buy all the shares of Gao Qiao. Ji Yuqi didn't hide anything from Ji Yunhan, so it aroused his strong objection. Ji Yunhan couldn't help but grab his hair angrily. "Sister, what the hell are you doing? Why do you want to buy Gao Qiao's shares? They are facing bankruptcy now." Ji Yuqi smiled faintly. The Yu family is one of the top families in Hanqing. Yu Lei is Yu Lindong's most valued grandson. Yu Lindong won't ignore Yu Lei. Just wait and see. The Yu family will definitely help Yu Lei. It's only a matter of time. Yu Lindong was a cunning old fox. His sons were all useless. Now he put all his hopes on his eldest grandson, Yu Lei. Unfortunately, Yu Lei had been studying abroad for many years. After returning to China, he gradually got out of Yu Lindong's control. Yu Lindong didn't do anything. Of course, he wanted to force Yu Lei into a desperate situation. He had no choice but to beg the old man for help. Then he would not only save the Yu family's face, but also gain his grandson's respect. It was like killing two birds with one stone. Ji Yuqi didn't know these inside stories, but in her previous life, she had accidentally heard the conversation between Xinjie and Aze. That was why she knew so much. She also took this opportunity to set a trap for Qin Tingfang. Thinking of Xinjie, Ji Yuqi's lips couldn't help but curl up. A hint of a smile appeared in her beautiful eyes. That childish man. Yesterday, he'd asked her to deliver lunch to his company and then dragged her to work with him. He'd peeked at her from time to time. Did he think she didn't know? Sis? Sis? Ji Yunhan couldn't help but shiver when his sister, who was chatting with him, suddenly went into a daze and even giggled foolishly. He jumped in front of her and waved his hand vigorously. Ji Yuqi's eyes turned and saw her brother staring at her with a smirk. Her face couldn't help but heat up. She coughed dryly and continued the topic from before. So, that's how it is. Gao Qiao will come back from the dead. If we buy stocks at a low price now, we can make a huge profit. Ji Yunhan squeezed his butt to her side and poked her arm with a smirk. Sis, you've been acting strange recently. Are you in love? Her relationship with Xinjie couldn't be exposed for the time being, but Ahan was her brother and she trusted him completely. She thought about it and smiled as she patted his head. If I say yes, will you object? Ji Yunhan's heart thumped. She was in love indeed. But the smile on his face became even more obsequious. That depends on who it is. If it's a bad guy like Jiang Tianhao, of course I'll object. Ji Yuqi bit her lip. Last time, she lied to Ahan in front of Xinjie and said that Xinjie was her friend's brother. Xinjie's face was full of resentment. Oh, she suddenly didn't want to disappoint him. Ji Yuqi made up her mind and suddenly turned around. She held Ji Yunhan's shoulders with both hands and said seriously, I'll take you to see him tonight. But you have to keep it a secret for me and not tell Dad, okay? Ji Yunhan's heart was burning with anger. Wow, this was too hateful. That wild man actually made his sister fall so deep that she had to see his family. He would never allow it. He grinned, revealing his white teeth. His gaze was unusually strange. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing him. Shen just sat behind his desk and listened to the department manager's report. In the meantime, he raised his wrist to look at the time. His handsome brows furrowed slightly. The department manager wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Did he do a bad job with his report? The vice president had already secretly looked at his watch 5 times. The more he spoke, the softer his voice became and the less confident he became. Tenja's brows furrowed even tighter and then quickly smoothed out. He glanced at him with his dark eyes and said indifferently, "Hungry?" The department manager hurriedly shook his head. "No, then speak louder." Big Boss impatiently knocked on the table with his finger. The department manager's heart and body trembled. He hurriedly raised his voice. In the empty room, only his loud voice could be heard. Shen Zhe impatiently knocked on the table again. Too loud. Boo-hoo, Big Boss is so hard to please. The department manager's heart was filled with bitter tears. Knock knock knock. Shen Zhe's cold expression immediately changed. A gentle smile appeared on his iceberg face, as if the ice and snow had melted. His voice also had a trace of imperceptible gentleness. Come in. The department manager suspected that he was hallucinating and rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Oh, he wasn't hallucinating. As the door opened, the smile on Big Boss' face became even more obvious. The department manager wanted to sneak a peek at the person who made Big Boss transform from an iceberg man into a gentle man, but he didn't dare to. He could only stand stiffly. Perhaps his stiff temperament was too outstanding. Big Boss rewarded him with a look and said indifferently, "There are still a few problems in the report. Redo it. You may leave. The department manager respectfully said, "Okay, I'll finish it as soon as possible." The sound of high heels was getting closer and closer. A woman's teasing voice could be heard. "Young master, it's bad enough that you've become a workaholic, but you've also implicated your employees. You're too hateful." Cold sweat appeared on the department manager's forehead again. This woman was too bold. She actually dared to speak to the vice president, who was known as the cold-faced devil. She was simply courting death. The strange thing was that Big Boss didn't get angry. There was an obvious tone of joy in his voice. He looked at him as if he had found his conscience. "Manager Gao, go and eat first. Give me this report tomorrow." Manager Gao was so touched that he was about to cry. Was he really abused too badly? Before he left, he looked gratefully at the woman who spoke up for him. He couldn't help but be stunned. She was very beautiful. She was wearing a simple bohemian dress that looked like a fairy's feather dress on her. Her fluffy curly hair naturally draped over her shoulders. Her facial features were exquisite and beautiful, like a doll placed in a display window. She was so beautiful that it made people gasp in admiration. The woman's eyes wandered and she nodded at him with a smile. His young heart was beating violently in his chest and his cheeks were burning uncontrollably. Big Boss's cold gaze turned to him with an expression that said, "Hurry up and leave. Don't be a third wheel." Manager Gao's heart trembled and he hurriedly left the office. Closing the door, Manager Gao wanted to cry. Damn it, he was actually staring at Big Boss's woman like a love-struck fool. If Big Boss found out, he would definitely make him die a horrible death. Big Boss Shinja didn't know that he had abused his subordinate until he was about to cry. He walked to Jiuchi's side with a straight face and hugged her tightly in his arms. His tone wasn't very good. "Why are you so late today?" It was 10 minutes later than the previous few times. He had already checked his watch 5 times. Jiuchi couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips. Her slender fingers poked his tense cheeks, and her sparkling eyes twinkled mischievously. "My young master, there was a traffic jam on the road. Today, there's your favorite crystal hoof. It's said that you'll be nourished by whatever you eat. You can run even faster after eating hoof." Her soft red lips were like a blooming rose in the morning, shining with a mesmerizing luster under the sunlight. His deep eyes darkened slightly and he slowly lowered his head, moving closer to her cheek. A strong and oppressive aura arose spontaneously. Jiuchi couldn't help but feel her heart pounding. Her cheeks were slightly hot as she pushed his chest and said softly, "Stop fooling around. Let's eat." His dark eyes stared fixedly at her lips, lingering. Just as her cheeks were getting redder and redder, almost turning into a tomato, he quickly pecked her lips lightly and then let go of her as if nothing had happened. He calmly opened the food box she had brought and took out the dishes one by one. Jiuchi touched her lips in a daze. She was speechless. Could this man be any more childish? He had obviously kissed her, but he was pretending that nothing had happened. She didn't know that although the man she was silently criticizing was expressionless and calm, his ears were quietly turning red. The afternoon was wonderful. With her company, Shinja's work efficiency increased by a lot. Although a certain young woman was just wandering around in the office, his heart was filled with joy as long as he looked up and saw her. "Shinja." Jiuchi sat on a certain someone's desk, her 2 slender legs swinging in tandem. There was a fawning smile on her coquettish face and her voice was sweet and soft. "Shinja, do you have time tonight?" Shinja's hands paused and he looked up at the young woman on the desk. She was sitting sideways, her slender and fair neck curved into a beautiful arc because of her tilting of her head. Her delicate little chin was slightly lowered, and her pair of clear and bright eyes were sparkling. The corners of her lips were slightly raised, and she looked like a sly and cute fox. He didn't know what she was thinking. He felt as if there was a small hand gently caressing his heart. A tingling feeling spread from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. He couldn't help but reach out and rub her soft hair. His voice was low and gentle. "And what are your plans?" Jiuchi's eyes curved into beautiful crescents. "Well, Tonight, I want to introduce my brother to you. Shenji agreed immediately, as if he wasn't angry that she didn't want to introduce him to her father. Jiyuchi didn't need to say the words she had prepared to appease him. Then where do you think we should meet? Jiyuchi was in a difficult position. She was worried that Chen Tingfang and her mother would follow them and find out about her and Shenji. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 840. Shenji pinched her nose naturally. Let's go to Golden Bay. You can head there directly after your afternoon class. I'll get Aze to pick up your brother from school. Indeed, this way, they would be able to fool everyone. Jiyuchi nodded in satisfaction. She gracefully jumped off the desk, glanced at the time and said with a smile, "All right, young Master Shin, you can work hard. I'm going to school for class." Her class was between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. This was a good time for her to deliver lunch to a certain foodie before heading to school. Shenji stretched out his long arm and pulled Jiyuchi into his embrace. He kissed her on the cheek and said in a mellow voice, "Be careful on the road." Jiyuchi was as obedient as a kitten. She replied softly. Under the setting sun, the bay seemed to be shrouded in a thin layer of golden gauze. The seawater washed over the beach, and it was peaceful. In the villa at Golden Bay, the atmosphere was not very pleasant. Ji-Yunhan's eyes were spitting fire as he glared at the tall man in front of him. That man's hands and claws were actually hugging his sister's waist without the slightest scruple. Even if he was Ying City's famous eldest young master of the Shun family, even if he was his sister's boyfriend, he still couldn't take advantage of his sister without his approval. Let go. Ji-Yunhan squeezed out these two words one by one from between his teeth. Shenji glanced at him expressionlessly. He didn't know what he was thinking, but he actually let go of Jiyuchi's waist. However, in the next second, he immediately used his left hand to hold her right hand tightly. Ji-Yunhan was almost amused by his actions. The dignified eldest young master of the Shun family was actually playing such a childish trick in front of him. Wasn't this shameful? He snorted and stepped forward. He grabbed Shinji's hand without hesitation, intending to separate their hands. He didn't expect Shinji to be so strong even though he looked thin and weak. He wasn't affected by him at all. He looked at him coldly and put his arm around Jiyuchi's waist again in a show of force. Ji-Yunhan was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. If it wasn't for his sister, he would have directly sent that shameless man flying with his fist. All right. You too, aren't you childish? Jiyuchi hurriedly stepped forward and stood between the two people who were like fire and water. She was deeply worried. An seemed to hate Shinji very much. She didn't know how to persuade Ahan to accept Shinji. Ji-Yunhan glared at Shinji and arrogantly raised his chin. Let me tell you, if you want to be my sister's boyfriend, you have to go through me. Shinji was expressionless and his voice was flat. Condition. The corners of Ji-Yunhan's mouth curled into a cold sneer. Beat me. Jiyuchi's mouth twitched. She almost knelt down in front of her brother. An, although your kung fu is very good, you are facing a super strong opponent. You have no chance of winning. Shinji raised his eyebrows. His eyes became interested and his lips curled into a light smile. All right, let's fight. All right, let's start now. Ji-Yunhan was eager to give it a try. His eyes were shining with excitement. Jiyuchi hurriedly stretched out her arm to separate the two of them. Don't be rash. Let's sit down and talk. Big sister, the problems between men should be solved with fists. You should move aside a bit. It wouldn't be good if I hurt you. Ji-Yunhan carelessly patted his chest and impatiently pushed her to the side. Jiyuchi was speechless. Hey, brother, sister is really doing it for your own good. Shen just stroked Jiyuchi's hair as if he was comforting a small animal. He said gently, Don't worry, I will be merciful. Shinji, you are insulting my dignity as a man. I don't need you to be merciful. Ji-Yunhan very domineeringly assumed a dual posture. That heroic and unrivaled aura that assaulted Jiyuchi's senses gave her a bad premonition. The two of them stayed in the villa's training room for a long time. When the door opened, Ji-Yuchi immediately rushed over. She thought that she would see Ji-Yunhan being beaten up until he looked like a pig. She did not expect to see Shinja being beaten up until he looked like a pig. When did Ahan's martial arts become unparalleled? He actually defeated Shinja. Very quickly, the shock in her heart was covered by pity. Shinja had obviously been beaten up badly. His handsome face was red and swollen. She hurriedly stood on her tiptoes to check the injuries on his face. She did not hide the deep pain in her eyes as she anxiously asked Aze, where is the medicine in your house? Please help me get it. It's okay. It doesn't hurt. Shinja enjoyed her concern. He held her cold little hand and the corners of his cold lips curled up slightly. His entire face softened. Although his face was full of scars, it did not affect his handsomeness at all. Instead, it added a bit of rough charm. Shin, you're really too much. I asked you to be merciful, not to be beaten up. Don't you know how to avoid it? Ji-Yuchi's heart ached as she smoothed the messy hair on his forehead to his face and wiped the sweat on his forehead with a tissue. Sis, you're too much. You've forgotten about your younger brother now that you have a boyfriend. You don't even care about me. Ji-Yunhan's face was gloomy as he clutched his chest. His chest was aching faintly. At this time, Ji-Yunhan had already brought over the external wound spray. Ji-Yuchi carefully sprayed the medicine on Shinja as she turned around to glare at Ji-Yunhan. I haven't even scolded you yet. How can you be so heavy-handed? You've beaten him until his nose is bruised and his face is swollen. How is he going to go out and meet people? Ji-Yunhan glanced at Shinja's half-smile expression and was completely provoked. He jumped up 3 feet high and almost couldn't help but scream. Shinja, that fellow was too shameless. He actually used the trick of injuring himself to gain sympathy. During the competition, Shinja kept putting his face in front of him. He didn't know what was going on, so he punched him a few times and left a lot of marks on his face. He didn't expect that Shinja would hit his chest and back every time. It was obviously very painful, but outsiders couldn't tell that he was injured. Ji-Yunhan really wanted to expose Shinja, this shameless fellow's true colors. However, he couldn't because the two of them had made a verbal agreement before the competition. If you agree to a bet, you have to accept defeat. They can't slander each other. Shinja, this man was too black-bellied. Everything was calculated by him. Ji-Yunhan was very angry, but other than anger, he also admired Shinja. He was very clear that Shinja had left some leeway during the competition. If Shinja really went all out, he would be a corpse now. This kind of strong and scheming man who loved his sister deeply should be able to protect his sister. Ji-Yunhan's heart was sour and astringent. In the end, he still decided to reluctantly accept Shinja for the sake of his sister's happiness. In the dining room, the atmosphere was very strange. Shinja sat at the dining table with bruises on his face. Ji-Yunhan sat on the other side expressionlessly. The two of them looked at each other, and it was as if they could hear the crackling of sparks in the air. Ji-Yuchi sat in the middle of them. She looked at one and then looked at the other and helplessly said, "Tonight's meal was personally prepared by me. Can you guys give me some face and stop playing the game of flirting with each other?" Humph. Ji-Yunhan was the first to turn his face away. With a proud tone, he said, "Shinja, I can admit that you're my sister's boyfriend, but you have to promise me one thing first." Shinja's gaze was calm. "Say it." Ji-Yunhan suddenly grinned sinisterly. "From now on, you're only allowed to treat my elder sister well. You have to spoil her, you can't deceive her. You have to do everything you promise her. Every word you say to her has to be sincere. You're not allowed to lie to her or scold her. You have to care for her. When others bully her, you have to be the first to help her. When she's happy, you have to be with her. When she's unhappy, you have to make her happy. You have to always think that she's the most beautiful. You have to see her even in your dreams." Ji-Yuchi covered her face. This is too much." She couldn't listen to him anymore. Shinja's gaze was focused. He listened to every word he said seriously. There was no expression on his face, but strangely, it made people feel that he was very serious and solemn. It was as if he was attending a sacred ceremony. After Ji Yunhan finished his last sentence, Shinj, who was a proud and rational man, unexpectedly turned to Ji Yuqi and held her fingers. He slowly said, "From now on, I will only love you and not lie to you. I will do everything I promise you. Every word I say to you is the truth. I won't bully you, I won't scold you, I believe in you. If anyone bullies you, I will be the first to help you. When you're happy, I will be with you. When you're unhappy, I will make you happy. I will always think that you're the most beautiful. I will dream of you. Only in my dreams." Ji Yuqi should have found it funny that the two people closest to her said such a classic line from a movie as a vow. She really did find it funny. However, she couldn't help but tear up. Why did these two despicable guys do this for her? Her beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist, and her heart was extremely sour. She really wanted to say something to let them understand how touched she was, but what came out was, "You two, stop messing around. If you continue, I'm really going to become a lion roaring from Hedong." Ji Yunhan laughed out loud. "Sister, you're obviously very touched. If you're touched, you should say it. If you don't say it, how would we know that you're touched?" Shinja didn't say anything and just naturally rubbed her soft hair. His deep eyes surged with a bright light as he stared at her attentively and affectionately. "Chi-Chi, vows aren't just for show. I will do it. I will love you for a lifetime and spoil you for a lifetime." The friendship between men was built very quickly. After just a fight and a meal, Ji Yunhan and Shinja were so close that they could put their arms around each other's shoulders. Ji Yunhan kept calling him brother-in-law and coaxing Shinja to give him his most treasured katana. Ji Yuqi pretended to be jealous and complained that Ji Yunhan changed sides too quickly. However, her heart was warm and sweet. It was getting late. The siblings should leave. Ji Yunhan cooperated very well to create a private space for the two of them. He took the lead and ran back to the car. Ji Yuqi hugged Shinja and stood on her tiptoes. She quickly kissed him on the lips and ran away quickly. Shinja touched his lips. His gaze followed the little girl. She ran away like a flustered little rabbit. He couldn't help but chuckle softly. His mellow voice was indescribably pleasant and moving. Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 841. Ji Yuqi had been in a good mood recently. The Yu family in Hanqing had indeed invested a large sum of money to save Gao Qiao Technology. The acquisition plan between Gao Qiao Technology and Wanxing Entertainment had been restarted and the share price had started to rise. Everything was developing in the direction she had predicted. The 5 million shares she had bought had risen to 8 million. Most importantly, she now held 10% of Gao Qiao Technology's shares. This 10% was very important to Yu Lei, who was anxious to take control of Gao Qiao Technology. Also, Chen Tingfang was heartbroken because of the rise in the share price. She was full of regret and looked constipated every day, as if someone owed her millions. If Ji Yuqi saw this, she would be in a good mood. "Yuqi, where do you plan to go during the May Day holiday?" Just as Ji Yuqi's thoughts were running wild, a handsome figure approached her and said this out of the blue. Ji Yuqi was shocked by the sudden voice. She turned her head and looked at Tang Feng, who was smiling gently. She blinked in confusion. Tang Feng? The little girl in front of him was obviously shocked by him. Her charming eyes were wide open and her pink lips were slightly parted. She was as obedient and cute as a kitten. Tang Feng had the urge to ruffle her hair. His actions were faster than his thoughts. His hand had already landed on her soft hair and he rubbed it gently. The smile on his thin lips deepened. "Chi-Chi, do you have any plans for the May Day holiday?" Ji Yuqi then realized that the May Day holiday was here. In this year, the May Day holiday was a 7-day holiday. She pursed her lips and avoided his hand without batting an eyelid. She smiled politely. "No plans yet." Her smile was distant and it made Tang Feng feel uncomfortable. He couldn't help but take a step forward and get closer to her. He said gently, "May is the best time to watch birds. How about we go to Qinghai Lake to watch birds? I remember that you liked small animals the most when you were young. Once, Grandpa Su gave you a thrush and you treasured it so much. Later on, The thrush died and you were sad for a long time. Under the sunlight, his handsome face was shrouded in a halo and it looked very unreal. Jiuqi's smile faded and she said softly, "So you still remember what happened when you were young?" It was a short sentence, but it made Tang Feng's heart ache. He finally knew what he had lost. He had lost a woman who was his childhood sweetheart. He had lost the girl who loved him the most. Caught off guard, he hugged her tightly and said hoarse, "Chi-Chi, I'm sorry. Let's start over. I'll be good to you." "It's already too late, big brother Tang Feng." Jiuqi quietly allowed him to hug her. She was neither happy nor angry. She was like a wooden doll that was completely under his control. It was this kind of indifference that made Tang Feng panic. He didn't want to become a stranger in her eyes. He hugged her even tighter until his arms were sore. "Chi-Chi, let's get married after we graduate." Jiuqi was helpless. Why do men only know how to cherish something after they lose it? "Tang Feng, don't you think it's too late? No one will wait for you in the same place." "I won't either. Don't tie me down with the marriage contract anymore. It's useless." As if he had been hit by a sharp sword, his heart ached. Tang Feng really wanted to imprison her by his side. She belonged to him since she was 3 years old. Whether she loved him or not, she could only be by his side. "Let go of her, you bastard. She won't marry you, and she won't go to Qinghai to see birds with you." With this reproach, a strong wind with anger attacked Tang Feng fiercely. Tang Feng had been in the army for 2 years and had undergone rigorous training. His sensitivity and reaction were so fast that he could almost hear the wind brought by the fist. He held Jiuqi in his arms and quickly dodged, barely avoiding Gu Fifen's angry punch. At this time, Gu Fifen was like an angry lion, without the laziness and elegance of the past. He attacked Tang Feng again after failing to hit him. Jiuqi was held by Tang Feng to dodge. She couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Well, you too, stop." Walala, 2 leaves fell from a nearby tree, and the surroundings were silent for a moment. Miraculously, the 2 men actually stopped what they were doing and turned to look at Jiuqi at the same time. Jiuqi pushed Tang Feng away and took a few steps forward, standing right in front of the 2 men. Her white cheeks were dyed with a thin layer of red from anger. She glared at the 2 men and said angrily, "You two, how old are you and you're still fighting? Aren't you childish?" The proud young master Tang Feng was scolded by a woman for the first time, but he didn't feel the slightest bit unhappy. Instead, he felt warm in his heart. He restrained his fierce aura and smiled. "Chi-Chi, you still care about me?" Jiuqi's face darkened. She really didn't understand how the narcissistic young master came to such a strange conclusion. Gu Fifen's elegant foxy eyes slightly raised, and he snorted. "Chi-Chi is now my woman. Tang Feng, don't pester her in the future." Jiuqi's face darkened even more. When did she become young Master Gu's woman? How come she didn't know? "Hey, you're too presumptuous. Gu Fifen, remember this clearly. Chi-Chi is my fiancée. We're a couple. Tang Feng, you've been abandoned by Chi-Chi. Don't make a fool of yourself, okay?" The 2 men glared at each other. Their eyes met and sparks flew everywhere. Jiuqi face-bombed. These 2 people were really hopelessly childish. Tang Feng and Gu Fifen were at each other's throats. One mocked the other, and the other laughed at the other. Unknowingly, a circle of people surrounded them to watch a good show. The chatter and laughter interrupted their 2-person world. Only then did they realize that they were surrounded by people like monkeys, and the woman they were fighting over had long disappeared without a trace. The 2 of them immediately felt that they had lost all face. They had been toyed with by that little girl. However, both of them were experts at showing off. It was as if the nonsensical scolding just now was just an illusion. The 2 of them were calm and composed. They chatted as they squeezed out of the crowd, leaving the crowd with a pair of tall backs. Jiuqi opened the car door. Just as she was about to get into the car, an arm stopped her. The tall and straight body blocked the sunlight in front of her. She narrowed her eyes and looked up. Suddenly, a pair of dark and deep eyes barged into her. Her eyebrows curved and she smiled sweetly. Shinja, why are you here? After only one night, the injuries on his face had miraculously healed by more than half. There were only a few faint scratches left, which didn't affect his handsome and elegant appearance at all. His thin lips were pursed tightly, and his whole body exuded a cold aura, as if he was trying his best to endure something. He was silent. He took the car keys from her hand and locked her car again. Then, he took her hand and led her to a silver Bentley. Shinja, what's wrong with you? Sitting in the front passenger seat of the Bentley, Jiuchi turned to look at the man who was throwing a tantrum with a dark face. Shinja's hawk-like sharp eyes stared at her delicate cheeks. He snorted coldly. His voice was low and suppressed his anger. Tang Feng and Gu Fifan fought because of you? Jiuchi's heart thumped. She was well aware of this man's strong possessiveness. Her face was filled with a fawning smile. She placed her slender fingers on his arm and shook it gently. Are you angry? It's their business that they fought. I don't care at all. Really. Her soft voice was like glutinous rice paste, sweet and soft. It was obviously very ordinary words, but in his ears, there was a hint of coquettishness. He was very pleased, but his expression was still ugly. He said stiffly, Tang Feng hugged you. D***it. If it weren't for her reputation and the fact that they couldn't disclose their relationship, he would have rushed out and beaten Tang Feng up. Jiuchi was embarrassed. She didn't have time to dodge when Tang Feng suddenly hugged her. She reached out and hugged the jealous man. She rubbed her head against his chest and said softly, I only treat him as an older brother. Don't be angry. Shinja didn't say anything and suddenly took off her clothes. What are you doing? She exclaimed and scrambled to save her clothes. However, Shinja was stronger than her. He quickly peeled off her little cardigan and threw it into the back seat. His gaze moved up and down her fair arms and neck. He raised the corners of his lips in satisfaction. Throw away the things he touched. Jiuchi glared at him angrily. How can you do this? What if I'm only wearing a dress today? Luckily, she was wearing a spaghetti-strap dress with a little cardigan on the outside. Otherwise, she would have to run around naked. Shinja brushed her hair behind her shoulder, revealing her delicate collarbone. His slender fingers lingered on her smooth skin as he chuckled. If that's the case, I don't mind seeing you naked. Of course, only he could see it. Jiuchi's face turned red. She glared at him fiercely and slapped his hand away. She said angrily, if you dare to do that, I'll... She suddenly couldn't continue. She actually wanted to threaten him by saying, break up, but when she thought of that word, she panicked and swallowed it back down. You what? Shen just stared at her puffy face with a burning gaze. He couldn't help but poke it with his finger like a mischievous child. His eyes were shining brightly. Jiuchi suddenly turned her head and bit his fingertip. She threatened him fiercely, if you dare to do that, I'll bite you. Feeling the warmth and softness on his fingertips, Shenja's expression became strange. His eyes gradually became deep and dark. It was unknown what he was thinking, but the tip of his ears was dyed with a layer of crimson. He was actually shy. Jiuchi let go of his finger and giggled. She cupped his face with both hands and looked at him carefully. She teased, eldest young master, so you know how to be shy too. Shen, you're so cute when you're shy. You're not allowed to laugh at me. Shen just squeezed these words out from between his teeth. He then quickly lowered his head and blocked the little girl's laughter with his mouth. Come and see. Song Shu 566. Chapter 842. After a long while, Shinja let go of Jiuchi and rested his head on her neck. His voice was low and hoarse. You're not allowed to hug other men in the future. As he spoke, his lips brushed against her skin. It felt ticklish. She resisted the strange feeling in her heart and bit her lip. She answered softly, okay, I won't let them hug me. You're not allowed to touch other people's faces either. His tone sounded like he was gritting his teeth. I won't touch your face, I won't touch your face. She tried her best to appease him. You're not allowed to hold my hand either. Okay, no, absolutely not. Ahan and Lin Yushi are not allowed either. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Hey! Ji Yuchi felt a little helpless. Isn't this range a little too broad? He looked up and glared at her. You have a problem with that? Ji Yuchi quickly shook her head. No problem, no problem. I'll listen to you. Shenja patted her head in satisfaction. Good girl. Ji Yuchi's heart was filled with bitter tears. Indeed, women were worthless after they fell in love. Where did the Shenja who used to let her do everything, pamper her and act cute from time to time go? Give him back to me. 2 hours later, Ji Yuchi woke up in the luxurious private jet. She turned her head to look at the man beside her. Shenja was wearing a pair of anti-radiation glasses on his nose. His cold and handsome face looked more elegant under the glasses. He bent his head slightly and browsed through some documents on his tablet computer. As if he felt her gaze, he looked up at her. His dark eyes were filled with gentleness and warmth. The corners of his lips curled up naturally. You're awake? Ji Yuchi responded with an and leaned her head on his shoulder naturally. He casually put the tablet computer aside and adjusted his position so that she could lean more comfortably. He then helped her pull up the blanket covering her legs and kissed her hair. We'll be there in about an hour. Are you tired? I'm not tired. Ji Yuchi was surprised. He had brought her from school to the airport. After boarding the plane, she had been sleepy. She had leaned on him and slept for more than half an hour. Only now did she remember that she had not informed her father of her whereabouts. Her father and Ahan should be worried. What are you thinking about? He ruffled her hair. Ji Yuchi frowned in distress and pouted. I don't know how to tell my dad. It's all your fault for suddenly taking me away. Actually, she should be blamed for being mesmerized by his kiss. She actually ran to the airport with Gigai and boarded a private jet to Jiangnan without considering the consequences. Her coquettish tone pleased Shinji. He chuckled softly and said, Don't worry. Before I went to pick you up, I had already asked Ahan to lie to Uncle and say that you went on a trip with your good friend. When the plane lands, you can call home to reassure your uncle. Ji Yuchi's mouth twitched. You actually convinced Ahan to commit a crime with you. I'm his brother-in-law. Of course he has to listen to me. Shenja lifted her delicate chin with his slender fingers and kissed her rosy lips in satisfaction. His thin lips were close to hers as he whispered, This is our first trip. Don't think about anything else. This was the first trip for both of them, a very meaningful trip. Because Shenja had taken her to Shui City. Shenja's maternal grandfather lived in Shui City and was from a prestigious family here. Back then, Shenja's mother, Qin Yuelan, had insisted on marrying Shenja's father despite her family's opposition. From then on, Qin Yuelan had cut off all contact with her maternal family. Shenja also rarely contacted his maternal family. It was not until he was chased out of the country by Shen Jianhao that he found out that his maternal grandfather had been protecting him behind his back. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago. In Shenja's heart, only his maternal grandfather's family was his true family. Therefore, after establishing a relationship with Yuchi, he wanted to bring her home and formally introduce her to his family. It was already past 7 when they got off the plane. The neon lights were twinkling and the night view was mesmerizing. Ji Yuchi called home and lied that she was going overseas with her friends. Ji Bowen didn't suspect anything and reminded her to be careful. Shenja didn't tell anyone about this trip. Even his secretary thought that he was going overseas for a business trip. From the moment he got off the plane, he turned off his phone and computer and started spending time with her. Outside the airport, a luxury car had been waiting for a long time. A handsome man in a suit bowed respectfully to the two of them. Young Master Yen, Miss Ji, welcome home. Shenja patted the man's shoulder. Long time no see. Ah Wu immediately broke into a smile and opened the car door. With one hand guarding the door, he made a polite gesture with the other. Young Master Yen, Miss Ji, please get in. Thank you. Ji Yuchi smiled politely. The car started and quickly drove into the beautiful night. When Ji Yuchi held Shinja's hand and got out of the car, she was shocked. It wasn't that she hadn't seen a mansion before, but it was the first time she had seen such a unique mansion. The Qin family was indeed a prestigious family in Shuicheng. From the long history of this mansion, it could be seen that the Qin family's mansion was simply a garden. 2 lanterns hung under the high eaves. Stepping over the weather-beaten threshold, what greeted her eyes were pavilions, terraces, and water pavilions. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every water here blended naturally with the buildings in the garden. Walking along the long corridor and walking on the small bridge over the flowing water, Jiuqi's heart calmed down. It was as if she had traveled through time and arrived in an ancient era. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Shinja. Under the candlelight, his handsome face was enveloped in a gentle halo. His eyes met hers, and they were dazzling and intoxicating. He held her hand and whispered softly, "Don't be afraid. Grandfather and grandmother are very kind people." She smiled. Under the candlelight, her smile was warm and bright. "I'm not afraid because you're here. Shinja, as long as you're by my side, no matter what difficulties there are, I'm not afraid." The servant led them to the hall. In the antique hall, 2 old men were sitting in the main seats. One was Shinja's grandfather, the patriarch of the Qin family, Qin Tianyu. Although his hair was gray, he was hale and hearty, and his eyes were bright. Since Jiuqi entered the door, his shrewd and wise eyes stayed on her for a moment, as if he was examining something. The other was Shinja's grandmother, the wife of the patriarch, Lin Shuxiu. Perhaps because she had taken good care of herself, she had black hair and the wrinkles on her cheeks were not very deep. Her gentle eyes flashed with a kind light, and she looked at Shinja and Jiuqi with a smile. In front of the 2 old men, there were several middle-aged men and several middle-aged noblewomen sitting on the left and right. Jiuqi guessed that they were Shinja's uncles and aunts. Shinja's handsome face revealed a gentle smile. He first greeted the 2 old men, then turned to the elders sitting on the 2 sides and greeted them one by one, confirming Jiuqi's guess. They were indeed his uncles and aunts. After greeting them, Shinja held Jiuqi's hand tightly and said warmly, "Grandfather, grandmother, uncles and aunts, this is my fiancée, Jiuqi." Jiuqi stood beside him openly. She was not timid because of the big show of extravagance, nor was she shy because Shinja was holding her hand in public. Her behavior was elegant, showing her good upbringing. She followed Shinja's greeting and politely greeted the elders. Her generous and decent behavior fell into the eyes of Old Master Qin, and he couldn't help but nod inwardly. This little girl looked young, but she was very elegant. At first glance, he could tell that she was the daughter of a rich family. She was perfect for their Shinja. The other elders also nodded inwardly, and their gazes towards Jiuqi softened. Old Madame Qin waved her hand kindly and said with a smile, "Yuqi, come to grandmother." "Yes," Jiuqi responded obediently with a sweet smile on her face. She quickly walked towards Old Madame. A servant had already moved a chair and placed it beside Old Madame. She didn't refuse and sat down naturally to chat with Old Madame. The benevolent-looking Old Madame reminded Jiuqi of her grandmother. She couldn't help but feel a little closer to Old Madame. When they chatted, she unconsciously revealed her true feelings. From time to time, she would make Old Madame happy without appearing to flatter her, which made Old Madame like her even more. On the other side, Shinja sat beside eldest uncle and chatted with Old Master Qin and the other uncles. In front of outsiders, Shinja was cold, arrogant, and unapproachable. But in front of his relatives, he was like a child with high IQ. Although he often thought of some wonderful plans, he always revealed some childish emotions. For example, he would show an innocent expression when the old master patted his forehead lovingly. He would roll his eyes when his uncles mocked him for having facial paralysis. He would even show a pitiful expression that said, "Grandmother, you don't love me anymore," when the old madam put food in Jiuqi's bowl, which made everyone laugh. This was the real Shinja. He longed for family affection. He loved his family deeply and was willing to use some poor acting skills to make them happy. Seeing Shinja like this, Jiuqi felt both happy and inexplicably distressed. He had been alone for too long and wanted to get the warmth of a family. But the Shen family would not give him the slightest bit of warmth. She didn't know if old madam did it on purpose or not, but she didn't arrange a guest room for Jiuqi. She wanted her to stay in Shinja's courtyard. Ji-Yuchi summoned up her courage to fight for a guest room. Old Madam smiled and said, "Yuchi, I'll have to trouble you tonight. Tomorrow, grandmother will arrange a room for you." Ji-Yuchi had no choice but to follow Shinja to his place. The Qin family's garden was very large. Every young master and miss had their own independent courtyard. And Shinja, although he only spent a few years of his childhood here, he still had his own independent small courtyard named Exian Garden. Exian Garden had 3 rooms, 1 bedroom, 1 living room, and 1 study. Ji-Yuchi certainly couldn't sleep in the study. She hesitated whether to sleep on the sofa in the living room. Shinja had already taken her hand and led her into the bedroom. The antique decoration and a carved antique bed. Ji-Yuchi was dazed for a moment. She thought that she had walked into the shooting site of a period drama. Beauty novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 843. Shinja came out of the bathroom with a bath towel wrapped around his body and a towel in his hand to wipe his wet hair. Ji-Yuchi sat on the edge of the couch and played with her mobile phone seriously. She pretended not to see anything, but the tip of her ears quietly turned red. Especially when she heard his approaching footsteps, her heart beat faster. A big hand snatched the phone from her hand, and a low and pleasant voice floated from above her head. "It's getting late. Go to bed early." Ji-Yuchi glanced at the only bed in the room and didn't know what to do awkwardly. She suddenly bounced up from the couch. "I'll sleep on the couch, you sleep on the bed. I'll get a quilt." She hurriedly ran to the cabinet. There must be a spare quilt in there. Shinja glanced at her. "I'd better sleep on the couch. It's very cold at night in Shui City." That couch was specially used for a summer lunch break. Although it was long enough, it wasn't wide enough. Shinja would definitely be aggrieved if he lay on it. Of course, Ji-Yuchi wouldn't let him sleep. After laying out the quilt, she lay down first, blinked her eyes, and said with a smile, "I'm already asleep. You can't snatch it from me." Shinja raised his eyebrows in amusement. What a rascal! Ji-Yuchi had thought that she would fall asleep quickly after a tiring day, but for some reason, she didn't feel sleepy at all. Instead, she became more and more awake as she stared at the dark ceiling. She was also worried that she would wake Shinja up if she tossed and turned on the bed, so she just lay straight and seriously counted the little sheep. She lay quietly. After an unknown period of time, her consciousness gradually became confused. She didn't know that a black shadow was approaching her. After her breathing became steady, the black shadow bent down and picked her up with the quilt. The little girl in his arms was curled up into a ball under the blankets, letting out light breathing sounds. Shinja's lips curved as he carefully placed her on the bed. He then laid down on the bed and gently pulled her into his arms. His movements were very careful, afraid that he would wake her up. The little girl unconsciously curled up in his arms. Her cheek gently rubbed against his chest like a confused kitten. She was so cute. Shinja's heart softened. He lowered his head and gently planted a kiss on her forehead. That night, Ji-Yuchi slept very soundly. When she woke up, the sun was already shining on the window. She opened her sleepy eyes, and the first thing she saw was a handsome face. Her pupils constricted, and she was obviously shocked. She wanted to escape from his embrace, but a large hand clasped her waist, making it impossible for her to escape. Even the slightest movement woke Shinja up in an instant. He suddenly opened his eyes. His dark eyes carried a bit of fierceness, but in an instant, they turned into the familiar gentleness she was familiar with. It was as if the moment just now was just an illusion. Ji-Yuchi felt a little stifled in her heart. What kind of environment did he live in for him to develop the habit of being vigilant even when he was asleep? The awkwardness in her heart dissipated. She smiled and greeted him, "Good morning." "Good morning." His voice had a unique hoarseness in the morning. His slightly rough fingers caressed her cheeks, and his face was serious. "You climbed up on your own last night." Ji-Yuchi felt as if she had been struck by lightning. When did I have the problem of sleepwalking? She had always thought that he was the one who carried her up. Was it really her wishful thinking? Shenja ruffled her hair and said gently, "It's okay. I don't mind at all." But she did mind. His expression became serious again. "I'm very worried about your problem of sleepwalking, so we'll sleep together in the future." Sleep. That was his real goal. The little girl in front of him stared at him with her eyes wide open. Her expression was full of suspicion and her gaze was full of distrust. She was so cute that she looked like an angry puppy. Shenja couldn't help but ruffle her hair again. His expression became more serious, as if they were discussing a profound academic problem. "This is for your own good. If you sleepwalk to a dangerous place, I can bring you back in time." The suspicion in Ji-Yuqi's eyes deepened. Suddenly, she blinked and grabbed his arm timidly. Her voice was soft and soft. "Shenja, you said before that you won't lie to me." Shenja's fake serious expression cracked. The corners of his mouth twitched and his voice was dry. "Okay, I admit it. I carried you up." Ji-Yuqi hugged his neck and buried her head in his chest to hide the smile on her face. Her voice was indescribably pitiful and weak. "You lied to me." Shenja hugged her back stiffly and coughed awkwardly. "I've asked Aze. This isn't considered lying. It's just a little fun between lovers." Ji-Yuqi secretly gritted her teeth. "Aze, just you wait." In a certain guest room, Aze sneezed out of nowhere. He rubbed his nose expressionlessly. Strange, who was scolding him? Shenja was depressed. He could have abducted Chi-Chi into his arms, but he didn't expect Chi-Chi to be so smart. It was a pity that his heroic image was ruined. The next day, Ji-Yuqi followed Shenja to visit relatives and friends. Only then did she realize that the Qin family was a very big family. There were third granduncle, third grandaunt, seventh granduncle, eldest uncle, and a bunch of cousins. There were so many relatives that Ji-Yuqi was dazzled. Fortunately, her memory was good enough. After meeting Shenja once, she could call out their names correctly the second time she met them. Otherwise, she would have made a fool of herself. However, she didn't know that everyone in the Qin family saw her being so generous and at ease. Otherwise, they wouldn't have held such a grand welcome banquet for a junior. At the banquet, Shenja was very considerate to Ji-Yuqi. His cousins deliberately teased him and kept toasting him, but Shenja stopped them all. The youngest one, Qin Yenner, was only 7 years old. She was innocent and lovely and was the little princess of the Qin family. Seeing that handsome cousin Yen loved sister Yuqi so much, she said in a clear voice, "I will find a husband who loves me as much as cousin Yen does." Shenja's beautiful face looked a bit unnatural. Ji-Yuqi chuckled, and so did the others. Qin Yenner's second cousin, Qin Yao, was 10 years old and looked very cute. He glanced at Qin Yenner with disdain and snorted. "You haven't even grown your teeth yet, and you're already thinking about your husband. Shame on you." Qin Yenner made a face and said in a childish voice, "He's still better than cousin Yen. I saw him holding a girl's hand a few days ago." The two children bickered as if no one else was around, and everyone laughed even harder. Shenja couldn't help but smile and held Ji-Yuqi's hand under the table. Ji-Yuqi secretly held his hand back. In the laughter, their hearts were getting closer and closer. In the end, Shenja drank too much. He was forced to drink by his unscrupulous cousins. Ji-Yuqi felt sorry for him, but there was nothing she could do. She knew that this was a unique way for men to communicate their feelings. With Aze's help, Ji-Yuqi helped Shenja back to Exang Garden. She originally planned to sleep in the guest room tonight, but a certain black-bellied man didn't stop when he was drunk. He kept holding her hand and wouldn't let go, so she had to stay. Ji-Yuqi helped him lie down, and he leaned against the pillow. The collar of his shirt was pulled open, revealing a large area of his sturdy chest. His pitch-black eyes flashed with a strange light. "Chi-Chi." His voice was mellow and nasal, with a hint of coquettishness. Ji-Yuqi wiped his face with a wet towel and asked softly, "Where do you feel uncomfortable? Do you have a headache?" He leaned against the pillow and smiled innocently. "Chi-Chi, what's wrong?" She was very patient, gently wiping his cheeks, his chin, and then down his neck. "Chi-Chi." He was still smiling innocently. His eyes were shining and he looked very beautiful. Jiyuchi paused and smiled bitterly. It turned out that someone was drunk. While she was wiping his body, the drunk man kept whispering her name in her ear. Those 2 words rolled out from the tip of his tongue with endless affection. It was so gentle that it made her heart tremble. After wiping his body, she got up and planned to put the towel back in the bathroom. Shenja grabbed her hand and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her waist and buried his furry head in her neck. His hot breath sprayed on her skin and his hoarse voice was muffled. "You're not allowed to leave." "Okay, I won't leave." Jiyuchi was defeated by him. She threw the towel into the basin and rubbed his hair. She said softly, "Sleep? You'll feel better when you wake up." Shenja grunted softly and hugged her tightly. He held her waist with one hand and stroked her hair gently with the other. He murmured dreamily, "Good baby, sleep." Jiyuchi didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she was coaxed like a child by a certain someone. She struggled but didn't manage to break free. Instead, it made a certain someone even more gentle. She could only stop and lay Gigai on his chest. Smelling the faint scent of alcohol on his body and listening to his strong heartbeat, Jiyuchi fell asleep unknowingly. In the middle of the night, Shenja suddenly opened his eyes when he heard the steady breathing of the person in his arms. The confusion in his eyes had disappeared. His burning gaze looked at the peaceful sleeping face of the person in his arms, and his eyes were full of love. When she woke up the next day, Jiyuchi was still lying on Shenja's chest in the same position as last night. She didn't know when he woke up, but his burning gaze fell on her body, almost roasting her. She shifted her body awkwardly. He suddenly hugged her and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't move." She acutely felt that something was pressing against her waist. She wasn't a young girl who was inexperienced, so of course she knew what it was. She was shy and annoyed, so she glared at him unhappily. His jade-like cheeks were dyed with an unnatural red, but his tone was serious. "You can't blame me. It's all its fault." Jiyuchi was angry and amused. She pushed his hand away, got up from his body as quickly as possible, and jumped off the ground. Shenja glanced in distress at a certain place that didn't live up to his expectations, then glanced in distress at his little girl who had run away. He could only sigh deeply. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.